Hello, dear friends. So glad you could join us at Harry FLAX. Today's narrative adventure is titled What If Harry Accidentally Apparated to Themyscira at age 5 and Amazons declared war on Dumbledore's prophecy. We put our heart into every story we share. If you appreciate our work, showing some love with a like and subscribe would make our day. The story begins now. Chapter 1, The Boy Who Vanished. Little Harry Potter huddled in the darkness of his cupboard, knees pulled tight against his chest. Outside, Uncle Vernon's bellowing still echoed through the house. Something about the neighbor's cat being chased up a tree, which had somehow become Harry's fault. It didn't matter that Harry had been washing dishes when it happened, weird stuff just seemed to follow him around. His stomach growled. No dinner tonight. Again. Freak, Vernon had spat before slamming the cupboard door. Harry was used to it by now. 5 years old, and he'd already learned to expect very little from life with the Dursleys. The light beneath the door vanished as someone switched off the hallway lamp. Harry heard heavy footsteps trudging upstairs, followed by Dudley's high-pitched whining about wanting another bedtime story. Eventually, the house fell silent except for the distant rumble of Vernon's snoring. Harry wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He wasn't crying. Not really. Big boys didn't cry, and he was 5 now, practically grown up. His stomach cramped again, sharper this time. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, a single piece of toast while Dudley demolished a plate of eggs, bacon, and sausages. Harry closed his eyes, trying to imagine food. Any food. A sandwich. An apple. Even just another slice of toast. He pictured it so clearly, sitting somewhere safe, somewhere far away, with a plate piled high with food. Somewhere where nobody called him freak. Somewhere, anywhere but here. A strange tingling sensation spread through his body, starting in his chest and radiating outward to his fingertips and toes. The air around him felt suddenly thick and heavy, pressing in from all sides. Harry gasped for breath as the darkness of the cupboard seemed to swirl and condense. Then came the squeeze. It felt like being pulled through a very tight rubber tube. For a terrifying moment, Harry couldn't breathe at all. His ears popped painfully. His body compressed, stretched, twisted, and then he was falling. The night air whipped past his face. Stars blurred above him. Harry's stomach lurched as gravity claimed him, pulling him down, 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 splash. Cold water enveloped him, shocking his system. Harry flailed wildly, his oversized hand-me-downs instantly soaking through and dragging him deeper. He'd never learned to swim, the Dursleys certainly hadn't bothered with lessons. Water filled his mouth as he gasped in panic. Just as his vision started to darken at the edges, something strong gripped the back of his shirt and yanked upward. His head broke the surface, and he coughed violently, expelling water from his lungs. Breathe, child, a woman's voice commanded. It sounded different from Aunt Petunia's, deeper, with an accent he'd never heard before. Harry blinked water from his eyes as he was carried through the water, his rescuer swimming one-armed while holding him above the surface. In the moonlight, he could make out a shoreline ahead, where several tall figures stood watching. When they reached shallow water, his rescuer stood, revealing herself to be a tall, muscular woman with dark braided hair. She wore strange leather armor that glistened with water droplets in the moonlight. Her expression was guarded as she carried Harry to the shore. "What is this?" demanded one of the waiting women, her hand resting on the hilt of a sword. "A sword." Harry stared, wondering if he was dreaming. "A boy," replied his rescuer. "He fell from the sky into the eastern cove. I was patrolling nearby." "Impossible," said another woman. "No man can find Themyscira, let alone a child." The woman holding Harry set him down gently on the sand. Now Harry could see at least a dozen women surrounding him, all dressed in similar leather armor, all carrying weapons. Some had swords, others spears or bows. All looked fierce and confused. "He is just a boy," said his rescuer. "And he is injured." Harry hadn't even noticed the blood running down his arm, a cut from when Vernon had grabbed him earlier that evening. It looked worse than it was. "Take him to the healers," said a woman who seemed to be in charge. "Then to the Queen. The gods will guide our judgment on this matter." Harry shivered, partly from cold, partly from fear. Where was he? Who were these women with weapons? And how had he gotten here? His rescuer nodded and picked Harry up again. "Do not fear, little one," she said, her voice gentler now. "I am Artemis of the Bonomidol. What is your name?" Harry," he whispered. "Harry Potter." Several of the women exchanged sharp glances. "The name is known to you?" asked Artemis. One of the older women stepped forward. "There are whispers from the world of men. Magic wielders speak of a child with that name. The boy who survived death itself." Harry didn't understand what they meant. He just wanted to stop shivering and maybe find something to eat. As if reading his thoughts, Artemis adjusted her grip on him. "Food and dry clothes first," she said firmly. "Questions later." No one argued. Artemis carried Harry away from the beach, up a winding path carved into a cliff face. For the first time, Harry could see buildings in the distance, white stone structures gleaming in the moonlight, unlike anything he'd ever seen in Little Whinging. "Where am I?" he finally asked. "Themyscira," Artemis replied. "Island of the Amazons. Home to the greatest warriors the world has ever known." Zons. Harry struggled with the unfamiliar word. "Women who fight," she explained simply. "Women who need no men. This island has been hidden from the world for thousands of years." Harry's 5-year-old brain couldn't quite process this. "Am I in trouble?" Artemis looked down at him, her expression softening slightly. "That remains to be seen, little one. But I do not think you came here by choice, did you?" Harry shook his head. "Then perhaps it is fate." She continued up the path. "Or perhaps it is something else entirely." Queen Hippolyta of the Amazon sat motionless on her throne as the small, dripping boy was brought before her. The great hall had been hastily filled with her advisors and warriors, all summoned from their beds by the unprecedented arrival of a male child on their shores. The boy, Harry Potter, they said, looked terrified. He wore clothes many sizes too large, now soaked with seawater. His black hair stuck up at odd angles, and behind broken glasses, his green eyes darted around the hall, taking in the armed women surrounding him. Most striking was the lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. "Approach," Hippolyta commanded. Artemis gently pushed the boy forward. He stumbled slightly but managed to stand before the queen, shivering in his wet clothes. "I am Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons. How did you come to our island, Harry Potter?" The boy swallowed hard. I don't know. I was in my cupboard," interrupted Hippolyta. "Where I sleep," Harry explained. "Under the stairs. Uncle Vernon was angry about the cat, and I didn't get dinner, and I was thinking about being somewhere else with food, and then everything got all squeezy and dark, and I fell into the water." A murmur ran through the assembled Amazons. Hippolyta leaned forward, studying the child more intently. "You wished to be elsewhere, and suddenly you were. That is powerful magic for one so young." Harry looked confused. "Magic isn't real. Uncle Vernon says, your uncle is mistaken," Hippolyta stated firmly. "Or he has lied to you. The power to transport oneself through will alone is rare, even among those born with magic." She gestured to an Amazon standing nearby. "Epione, examine the boy. See to his injuries and confirm what we suspect." The royal healer stepped forward and knelt before Harry. She was older than many of the warriors, with streaks of silver in her dark hair, but her movements were graceful and precise. She took Harry's small hands in hers and closed her eyes. After a moment, she spoke. "There is strong magic within him, my queen. Unrefined, untrained, but powerful. And she frowned, placing a hand gently on Harry's forehead, near his scar. There is something else. Something dark. A taint that does not belong. Harry looked even more frightened. Am I bad? No, child, Epione said kindly. But something bad has touched you. Left its mark upon you. Hippolyta nodded thoughtfully. Penthesilea, bring Menelip. We need a seer's wisdom in this matter. As they waited for the Amazon seer to arrive, Hippolyta studied the boy more carefully. Despite his fear, he stood straight, meeting her gaze when she spoke to him directly. There was a resilience in him that she recognized, the kind born from hardship. You mentioned a cupboard where you sleep, she said. And no dinner as punishment. Were you well treated in your home, Harry Potter? Harry looked down at his feet. I'm not supposed to complain. You are on Themyscira now. Here, truth is honored above all. Harry seemed to consider this. They don't like me much, he finally admitted. Aunt Petunia says I'm a burden. Uncle Vernon calls me freak. Dudley, that's my cousin, he hits me a lot, and I never get toys or new clothes, and sometimes I don't get food if I do something wrong, even when I don't know what I did. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Hippolyta's expression remained neutral, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the arms of her throne. I see, she said simply. The doors to the hall opened, and an older Amazon entered. Her eyes, unlike the sharp focus of the warriors, seemed to look both at everything and nothing simultaneously. She approached the throne and bowed. Menelip, our most gifted seer, Hippolyta introduced her. This boy appeared on our shores tonight. He says his name is Harry Potter. Menelip's distant gaze suddenly sharpened. The boy who lived. Harry blinked in confusion. What? Instead of answering, Menelip circled Harry slowly, her fingers occasionally reaching out to touch the air around him, as if tracing invisible threads. There is prophecy here, she murmured. Heavy, binding prophecy. Old magic and blood protection. Sacrifice. Death. Rebirth. She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening as she stared at Harry's scar. And connection. A terrible connection. Speak plainly, Hippolyta commanded. Menelip straightened. This child is bound by prophecy to face a great dark wizard. The one who gave him that scar. The one who murdered his parents but could not kill him. Harry's face paled. My parents aren't dead. They died in a car crash. That's what Aunt Petunia told me. The seer knelt before Harry, her eyes sad. Child, you have been lied to. Your parents were murdered by an evil wizard called. She hesitated, then continued, Lord Voldemort. You were marked as his equal. She touched his scar gently. And by prophecy's decree, neither can live while the other survives. Harry's lower lip trembled. My parents were murdered. Yes, child. They died protecting you. Tears welled in Harry's eyes. For a moment, the hall was silent except for the soft sound of a 5-year-old boy learning the truth about his parents' deaths. Hippolyta rose from her throne. Enough for tonight. The boy is exhausted, hungry, and has learned too many harsh truths at once. She approached Harry and, surprising everyone, knelt to his level. Harry Potter, you will be given food, dry clothes, and a warm bed. Tomorrow, we will speak more of these matters. For tonight, rest assured you are safe on Themyscira. Harry wiped his eyes with his oversized sleeve. Am I allowed to stay? That decision has not yet been made, Hippolyta answered honestly. But for tonight, yes. You will stay. She stood and addressed a younger Amazon. Philippus, see to the boy's needs. As Harry was led away, Hippolyta turned to her advisors. The council chambers. Now. The council chamber buzzed with argument. 24 of Themyscira's eldest and wisest Amazons debated fiercely, their voices echoing off the marble walls. He cannot stay. No man has set foot on Themyscira since its creation. He is hardly a man, merely a child. A male child grows into a man. The boy is clearly abused. Would you send him back to such treatment? His suffering, while regrettable, is not our concern. Hippolyta let them argue, her face impassive as she considered all perspectives. When the debate began to circle back on itself, she raised her hand for silence. Menelip, she said. Tell us more of this prophecy that binds the boy. The seer stepped forward. The prophecy speaks of one born as the 7th month dies, marked by the Dark Lord as his equal. It claims neither can live while the other survives. Meaning? One must kill the other. The boy is destined either to become a murderer or to be murdered. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. He is 5 years old, said Artemis, who had remained quiet until now. 5 years old, and already fate has decreed he must kill or be killed. Such is the way of prophecy, said an older Amazon. No, Artemis countered. Such is the way of men. They would place the burden of their wars on a child's shoulders rather than face their enemies themselves. Hippolyta nodded thoughtfully. What do we know of this dark wizard who hunts the boy? Voldemort, Menelip supplied. A powerful wielder of dark magic who terrorized Britain's magical community until his attack on the Potter family. He killed the parents but was somehow defeated when he tried to kill the child. Most believe him dead, but the prophecy suggests otherwise. And who protects the boy now? He was placed with his mother's sister's family, those who mistreat him. But there are magical protections based on his mother's sacrifice and blood relation. Beyond that, a wizard named Albus Dumbledore oversees his fate from afar. Oversees, yet allows abuse. Hippolyta's voice sharpened. The magical protection requires he call his aunt's home his home. The wizard Dumbledore believes the boy's safety from Voldemort's remaining followers outweighs other concerns. Philippus, who had returned from settling Harry in a guest chamber, spoke up. The boy showed me his back while changing into dry clothes. There are bruises there. Old and new. The Queen's expression darkened. So this great wizard protector preserves the boy's life only so he can fulfill a prophecy, while allowing him to suffer daily cruelty? It appears so, Menelip confirmed. Hippolyta stood, silencing the renewed murmurs. I wish to consult the gods directly on this matter. Until I return, the boy remains under our protection. Without waiting for a response, she swept from the chamber and made her way to the temple of Athena, Themyscira's most sacred site. Inside, beneath the towering statue of the goddess of wisdom and warfare, Hippolyta knelt. Athena, wisest of the gods, I seek your guidance. A male child has come to our shores, pursued by prophecy and dark magic. Shall we return him to the world of men and their schemes, or does he have a place here among the Amazons? For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the air before the statue shimmered, and a tall woman in gleaming armor appeared, her gray eyes piercing and ancient. Hippolyta, Athena's voice resonated within the queen's mind rather than through the air. You already know the answer you seek. Why do you ask what you have already decided? Hippolyta bowed her head. I wish to be certain my decision serves both Themyscira and justice. And what have you decided, daughter of the Amazons? That no child should be sacrificed to prophecy. That we who know the cruelty of fate's chains should stand against them whenever possible. Athena's expression remained unreadable. You would defy the prophecy that binds the boy to his nemesis. I would give him the choice and the means to face it on his own terms, not as a lamb raised for slaughter. And if keeping him here brings Themyscira into conflict with the wizards of Britain? Hippolyta met the goddess's gaze steadily. Then we will remind them why the Amazons were feared even by gods. After a long moment, Athena nodded. Very well. The boy may remain on Themyscira under your protection. Teach him your ways, strength, honor, compassion. But know this, the prophecy will not be denied so easily. Dark times lie ahead, and the boy's path will eventually lead back to the world of men. When that time comes, he will not walk that path alone, Hippolyta vowed. So be it. Athena's form began to shimmer and fade. One final warning, Queen of the Amazons, the scar upon the boy's forehead holds darker magic than even your seers can perceive. It must be addressed before he can truly be free. With that, the goddess vanished, leaving Hippolyta alone in the temple. The queen remained kneeling for several minutes, contemplating Athena's words. Then, with new resolve, she rose and returned to the council chambers. The Amazons fell silent as she entered. I have consulted with Athena, Hippolyta announced. Harry Potter will remain on Themyscira, under my personal protection. He will be trained in our ways while we investigate the magic that binds him. And the laws forbidding men from our shores? Asked one of the elder Amazons. He is a child, not a man, Hippolyta replied firmly. And those laws were created to protect us from the violence and domination of men. This boy needs protection from those very same forces. She surveyed the council. Furthermore, I declare formal opposition to the prophecy that would make a child into either murderer or victim. Themyscira stands against such fate. Artemis was the first to pound her fist against her chest in salute. The Bonomidal stand with you, my queen. One by one, the other Amazons followed suit, until even the most reluctant had given their support. It is decided, Hippolyta declared. Now we must prepare for the consequences of our decision. The boy's disappearance will not go unnoticed. Menelip, consult the oracles. Learn all you can about this Dumbledore and his plans for the boy. Philippus, increase coastal patrols. Epione, examine the boy's scar more thoroughly. Athena warns it contains dark magic we must address. As the Amazons dispersed to their assigned tasks, Hippolyta remained in the council chamber, staring at the map of Themyscira on the wall. My queen, Philippus said softly from behind her. There is one more matter to consider. Yes. Your daughter. Diana has been asking about the boy since word spread of his arrival. Hippolyta smiled slightly. Of course she has. My curious little one never misses anything on this island. She is only 7, but perhaps they could be friends. Hippolyta finished the thought. Yes, I believe that would be good for both of them. Arrange it for tomorrow, after the boy has rested. Philippus nodded and departed, leaving Hippolyta alone with her thoughts. The queen of the Amazons looked out the window toward the guest quarters where a small boy with a lightning scar slept, unaware that his arrival had set in motion events that would change both his fate and the future of Themyscira forever. 4,000 miles away, in a castle in Scotland, alarms blared throughout the headmaster's office. Albus Dumbledore was startled awake, nearly knocking over his inkwell as he jerked upright at his desk. The silver instruments on nearby shelves whirred and puffed smoke frantically. No, he breathed, instantly alert. He rushed to the devices, checking each one with growing alarm. The blood wards at Privet Drive had collapsed completely. The tracking charms he'd placed on Harry Potter had gone silent. Dumbledore grabbed his wand and disapparated with a crack, reappearing moments later on the perfectly ordinary street of Privet Drive. Nothing seemed amiss, no dark mark hung in the sky, no signs of magical battle. Yet the protective enchantments he'd carefully constructed around number 4 had vanished as completely as if they'd never existed. He disillusioned himself before approaching the house and unlocking the door with a silent spell. Inside, the Dursley family slept peacefully, unaware of any disturbance. Dumbledore moved swiftly to the cupboard under the stairs. Empty. A thin mattress, a few broken toys, and some oversized clothes were all that remained. Harry Potter was gone. Dumbledore cast detection spell after detection spell, searching for any trace of dark magic, any sign of what had happened. There was residual magic, yes, the distinctive signature of accidental apparition. But that was impossible. No 5-year-old could apparate, let alone over a distance great enough to escape his tracking charms completely. Unless Harry had somehow apparat somewhere magically hidden or protected. Somewhere unplottable. Somewhere like Hogwarts, or the Ministry, or... Dumbledore's mind raced through possibilities as he returned to the headmaster's office and began activating his network of contacts. Minerva McGonagall arrived first, still in her tartan dressing gown. "Albus, what's happened?" "Your Patronus sounded urgent." "Harry Potter has vanished," Dumbledore stated grimly. "Disappeared from his relative's home without a trace." McGonagall's hand flew to her mouth. "Death Eaters? I don't believe so. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle. It appears he may have accidentally apparat. At 5 years old? That's not possible, Albus. For any ordinary child, no. But Harry has never been ordinary." Dumbledore began writing rapid messages. "Alert the Order. Discreetly. We must find him before anyone else realizes he's missing." As McGonagall left to carry out his instructions, Dumbledore paused, a troubling thought occurring to him. He approached one of the silver instruments, the one specifically tied to the prophecy. It still functioned, indicating the prophecy remained intact, but its rhythm had changed. Something had interfered with the path he'd so carefully laid out. "Where are you, Harry?" he murmured. "And what has changed?" Harry woke to sunlight streaming through an open window. For a moment, he thought he was back in his cupboard and had dreamed the whole adventure. But the soft bed beneath him and the high, airy ceiling above confirmed that everything had happened. He was on an island of warrior women called Amazons. His parents hadn't died in a car crash, they'd been murdered by an evil wizard. And apparently, he had magic. It was a lot for a 5-year-old to process. A soft knock came at the door. "Harry Potter? Are you awake?" It was Philippus, the Amazon who had brought him to this room last night. "Yes," Harry called, sitting up. Philippus entered, carrying a bundle of clothing. "These should fit you better than your old things," she said, setting them on the bed. Unlike the stern warrior from last night, this morning she seemed almost gentle. "There is fresh water for washing, and breakfast will be ready when you're dressed." Harry looked at the clothes, a simple white tunic and soft leather sandals. They looked nothing like what Dudley wore, but they were clean and new. "Thank you," he said quietly. Philippus nodded. "The Queen wishes to see you after you've eaten." "And?" She hesitated, something like a smile touching her lips. "Her daughter is quite curious about you." "Her daughter?" Harry asked, surprised. He hadn't realized the Queen had a child. "Princess Diana. She's 7, not much older than you." Harry wasn't sure what to make of that. His only experience with children near his age was Dudley and his friends, none of whom had ever been kind to him. "Is she nice?" he asked cautiously. This time Philippus did smile. "She is the brightest spirit on Themyscira. And very excited to meet you." After she left, Harry quickly washed and dressed. The tunic felt strange after years of Dudley's cast-offs, but the fabric was soft against his skin, and for once, clothes actually fit him properly. He followed Philippus to a small courtyard where a table had been set with fruits, bread, and honey. Harry's eyes widened at the sight of so much food laid out just for him. "Eat as much as you like," Philippus told him. Harry didn't need to be told twice. He ate until his stomach felt ready to burst, savoring flavors he'd never experienced before. The fruits were fresher than anything Aunt Petunia had ever bought, and the bread was still warm from baking. As he was finishing, a whirlwind of energy burst into the courtyard. A girl with long black hair and bright blue eyes skidded to a stop in front of his table, grinning widely. She wore a tunic similar to his, though hers was belted with a golden cord. "You're Harry," she exclaimed. I'm Diana. Mother said I could show you around if you want. Do you want to see the training grounds? Or the beach? Or the stables? We have the best horses in the world, you know. Harry blinked, overwhelmed by her enthusiasm. Diana, Philippus chided gently. Give our guest a moment to breathe. The girl's grin didn't fade, but she managed to stand still. Sorry. I'm just excited. We don't get visitors here. Ever. It's okay, Harry said. He found himself smiling back at her, her joy was infectious. I'd like to see everything, I guess. Perfect. Diana bounced on her toes. As soon as you're done with Mother, we can start with the Diana. Queen Hippolyta's voice came from the courtyard entrance. Diana immediately straightened, though the spark in her eyes didn't dim. Good morning, Mother, she said, attempting to sound dignified. Good morning, my sun and stars, Hippolyta replied, fondness evident in her voice. She turned to Harry. And good morning to you, Harry Potter. I trust you slept well. Harry nodded, suddenly nervous again in the Queen's presence. Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you for the room. And the clothes. And the breakfast. You are welcome. Hippolyta gestured for him to follow. Come. There is much we must discuss. Harry glanced at Diana, who gave him an encouraging thumbs up behind her mother's back. Can I show him around after? Diana asked. Hippolyta considered her daughter. Yes, but remember he is our guest, not a new toy. He has had a difficult journey. I'll be good, Diana promised solemnly. Harry followed the Queen through marble hallways adorned with paintings and tapestries depicting battles and hunts. Eventually, they reached a smaller, more private chamber. Hippolyta sat in a chair and indicated Harry should take the one opposite her. Harry, she began, do you understand what happened to bring you here? Harry thought about it. I did magic. I apparat. Yes. Your desire to escape, combined with your innate magical ability, brought you to Themyscira. That should not have been possible. Our island is hidden by ancient magic from the world of men. So. I have to go back. Harry asked, his voice small. Hippolyta studied him. Would you want to return to those who kept you in a cupboard? Harry looked down at his hands. No, he whispered. I have consulted with the goddess Athena, Hippolyta said. You may remain on Themyscira, if that is your wish. But there are things you must understand. She explained, as simply as she could, about the prophecy that bound him to face Voldemort. About how the wizarding world believed him to be their savior. About how Dumbledore, whoever he was, had plans for Harry's life. We do not accept such fate, Hippolyta stated firmly. The Amazons believe each warrior forges her own destiny. If you stay, we will teach you our ways. You will learn to fight, to think, to use both your magic and your mind. When the time comes to face this dark wizard, and it will come, you will do so on your terms, not as a lamb led to slaughter by prophecy. Harry's 5-year-old mind struggled with some of the concepts, but he understood enough. You'll teach me to fight the bad wizard who killed my parents? Yes. But more importantly, we'll teach you to live without fear. To be strong in body, mind, and spirit. Will I be an Amazon? Harry asked. Hippolyta's lips quirked. You cannot be an Amazon, Harry. But you can be a friend to the Amazons. A brother in arms, perhaps. She leaned forward. But know this, if you stay, there may come a day when those from your world try to reclaim you. They believe the prophecy must be fulfilled in a specific way. I don't want to go back, Harry said with sudden fierceness. I want to stay here. The Queen nodded. Then it is decided. You will stay on Themyscira under my protection. You will train alongside my daughter and learn our ways. She rose and placed a hand on his shoulder. Now, I believe Diana is waiting rather impatiently to show you your new home. Sure enough, when they exited the chamber, Diana was pacing in the hallway. She brightened immediately upon seeing them. Well, she demanded. Is he staying? Hippolyta nodded. He is. Diana let out a whoop of joy and grabbed Harry's hand. Come on. We have so much to see. As Diana pulled him down the hallway, Harry felt something he couldn't remember ever feeling before, hope. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of happiness. In the following days, Harry's life transformed completely. Where before there had been confinement and neglect, now there was space and attention. Where there had been isolation, now there was Diana's boundless friendship. The young princess took her role as Harry's guide seriously, showing him every corner of Themyscira with enthusiastic commentary. She introduced him to the palace guards, the fisherwomen, the sculptors, and the farmers. Everyone seemed to adore Diana, and while they regarded Harry with curiosity, they treated him with kindness. This is the training ground, Diana announced on their third day, leading Harry to a large open space where dozens of Amazons practiced various combat forms. Some sparred with swords or spears, others practiced archery, and some fought hand-to-hand. Harry watched in amazement as two warriors clashed, their movements so fast he could barely follow them. When do you start training? He asked Diana. I already have, she said proudly. I can shoot a bow and throw a knife. Mother says I'm too young for swords yet, but I practice anyway when she's not looking. Will I learn too? Of course. Mother said you'll train with me starting next week. Diana grabbed his hand again. Come on, I want to show you the stables next. As they ran across the grounds, Harry spotted Artemis, the Amazon who had pulled him from the sea on his first night. She was demonstrating fighting techniques to younger warriors. When she saw Harry, she nodded in acknowledgement. Diana followed his gaze. Artemis is the best fighter after Mother, she informed him. She'll probably teach you how to throw a spear. She taught me last year. The stables housed the most magnificent horses Harry had ever seen. They were larger than normal horses, with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand when Diana spoke to them. This is Aella, Diana said, stroking a white mare's nose. She's mine. Or she will be when I'm old enough to ride alone. They're so big, Harry said, keeping a cautious distance. Diana laughed. They won't hurt you. Here. She took an apple from a nearby barrel and handed it to him. Hold it out flat on your palm. Harry nervously extended his hand with the apple. Aella sniffed it delicately, then took the fruit with surprisingly gentle lips. Harry giggled as the horse's whiskers tickled his palm. See? She likes you. Their days fell into a pleasant rhythm. Mornings were spent with tutors who taught Harry to read and write Greek alongside Diana. Afternoons were for exploration and play. In the evenings, he would sometimes sit with Hippolyta, who told him stories of the Amazon's history and occasionally asked about his life before Themyscira. Harry found these conversations difficult at first. He wasn't used to adults being interested in his thoughts or feelings. But Hippolyta was patient, and gradually he opened up about life with the Dursleys. They told me my parents died in a car crash, he said one evening, a week after his arrival. Why would they lie? Perhaps they thought the truth too frightening for a child, Hippolyta suggested, though her tone suggested she didn't believe this excuse. Or perhaps they feared magic and wished to deny its existence, even to you. Did you know my parents? Harry asked. Hippolyta shook her head. No, child. The Amazons have had little contact with the wizarding world for many centuries. But Menelip has consulted the oracles and learned more of your story. She explained how his parents, James and Lily Potter, had fought against the dark wizard Voldemort. How they had gone into hiding to protect Harry after learning of the prophecy. How, on Halloween night 4 years ago, Voldemort had found them, killed them, and then tried to kill Harry, only to have the curse somehow rebound, destroying Voldemort instead. That is why they call you the boy who lived, Hippolyta concluded. Because you survived what none had survived before. Harry touched his scar. Because of this? Yes. But remember, Harry, surviving does not define you. It is what you choose to do with your life that matters. That night, for the first time, Harry dreamed of his parents. Not their deaths, but their faces, his mother's kind green eyes, his father's mischievous smile. He woke feeling both sad and comforted. When he told Diana about the dream during their morning lessons, she squeezed his hand. Mother says the dead are never truly gone as long as we remember them. Maybe your parents found a way to visit you in your dreams. Harry liked that idea. On the morning Harry was to begin his training, he woke earlier than usual, too excited to sleep. He dressed quickly in the training clothes that had been provided, a light tunic with reinforced leather patches and sturdy sandals. He was heading to the dining hall when he heard raised voices from Hippolyta's council chamber. Curiosity got the better of him, and he crept closer to listen. Cannot remain hidden forever, a voice he recognized as Menelip's was saying. The wizard Dumbledore has extended his search. He employs powerful magic to locate the boy. Let him search, came Hippolyta's firm reply. Themyscira remains hidden as it has for millennia. The god's protection is strong, agreed another voice, but the boy's presence changes things. There is a connection. The scar acts as a beacon to those who know how to sense it. Harry touched his forehead, suddenly self-conscious about his scar. What of the dark magic within it? Asked Hippolyta. Have you made progress, Epione? Some, my queen. It is unlike anything I have encountered. A fragment, a splinter of something larger. Almost like. Like what? Like a piece of soul, Epione said hesitantly. Corrupt and malformed, but alive in its way. Harry's breath caught. Something was living in his scar. Can it be removed? Hippolyta's voice was tense. Not with our methods alone. I have consulted ancient texts, but we may need to seek help from the world of men. There are Egyptian techniques for soul magic that might, no. Not yet. Hippolyta's voice hardened. We will exhaust our own resources first before exposing our presence. The boy has only just begun to feel safe here. And the prophecy? We defy it, Hippolyta stated. Harry Potter will face his enemy when he is ready, not when fate or Dumbledore decides. The Amazons have not gone to war with the outside world in thousands of years, someone pointed out. And yet we train for war every day, Hippolyta countered. If war comes because we protect a child from those who would use him as a weapon, then so be it. Harry backed away from the door, his mind spinning. Soul fragments. War. It was too much to understand. He hurried to the dining hall, trying to process what he'd heard. Diana was already there, practically bouncing with excitement. Today's the day, she crowed when she saw him. Are you ready to start training? I think so, Harry said, pushing aside his confusion to match her enthusiasm. You'll be great, Diana assured him. Especially with magic. Mother says you have lots of it. After breakfast, they headed to a smaller training ground where Artemis waited with 2 other young Amazon trainees. For the next several hours, Harry learned the basics of Amazon combat philosophy, balance, awareness, discipline. Fighting is not about strength alone, Artemis told them, correcting Harry's stance. It is about using your opponent's force against them. Even the smallest warrior can defeat a giant with proper technique. Harry, small for his age and used to running from Dudley's gang rather than fighting, took to these principles quickly. By midday, he had learned to fall without injury and to stand in ways that maximized his stability. Good, Artemis nodded approvingly as Harry successfully deflected a slow punch from Diana. You have natural instincts. Tomorrow we add wooden training weapons. That afternoon, as the children rested beneath an olive tree, Diana noticed Harry's distracted expression. "What's wrong?" she asked. Harry hesitated, then told her about the conversation he'd overheard. To his surprise, Diana didn't seem shocked. "I know about the soul thing," she admitted. "I overheard Mother talking to Epione about it last week." "You did? Why didn't you tell me?" Diana shrugged. "Mother said it might scare you. And that they'd fix it. But what if they can't?" Harry touched his scar again. "What if there's a piece of the bad wizard inside me?" "Then we'll get it out," Diana said with absolute confidence. "The Amazons can do anything. And you're under our protection now." Her certainty was comforting. Harry leaned back against the tree trunk. "Your mom said they might go to war because of me." "Mother doesn't fear war," Diana stated proudly. "And neither do I. If those wizard people try to take you away, we'll fight them. But I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me." Diana punched his arm lightly. "That's why we're training, silly. So you can protect yourself. And I'll help." Harry smiled, Diana's unwavering support pushing away his darker thoughts. "Thanks. Race you to the beach?" Diana suggested, already jumping to her feet. And just like that, they were children again, concerns about prophecies and soul fragments temporarily forgotten as they ran laughing toward the sea. In a hidden chamber beneath Gringotts Bank in London, Albus Dumbledore faced a circle of goblins, his usual twinkling demeanor replaced with grave intensity. "The blood ritual requires something of his family," the chief goblin explained. "Without it, we cannot trace him if he is hidden by powerful magic." "I have brought this," Dumbledore said, producing a small vial. "Hair from his aunt, his mother's sister. Will it suffice?" The goblin examined the vial. "Perhaps. The connection is distant but present." He turned to his associates and spoke rapidly in gobbledash before addressing Dumbledore again. "We will try. But our magic is not designed to circumvent divine barriers." "Divine barriers?" Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "What makes you think we know the signatures of different magics, wizard? The trace we found before it vanished, it was not entirely of this realm." Dumbledore's mind raced through possibilities. Divine intervention was rare in the modern era but not unheard of. Certain old families still maintained connections to ancient powers. Could someone with such connections have taken Harry? The goblins began a complex ritual, chanting as they arranged crystals around a large map. Dumbledore watched as they added Petunia Dursley's hair to a golden bowl, which then erupted in blue flames. For nearly an hour, the chanting continued. The map glowed, sections lighting up and fading as the magic searched. Finally, a single point flared brightly, somewhere in the Mediterranean, before abruptly vanishing in a shower of sparks. The lead goblin hissed in frustration. Something interfered. Something powerful. "But you found something," Dumbledore pressed. "Where?" "A hidden place. An island." The goblin's eyes narrowed. "Protected by gods older than wizardry." Dumbledore felt a chill. There were few places that fit that description, and fewer still that would take in a wizard child. "Themyscira," he breathed, naming the most likely possibility. The goblin neither confirmed nor denied, but his expression was answer enough. "If the boy is there, wizard, even you cannot reach him without invitation." "We shall see about that," Dumbledore murmured, already planning his next move. As he left Gringotts, his thoughts were troubled. If Harry truly was on Themyscira, under Amazon protection, retrieving him would be nearly impossible by force. The Amazons were formidable warriors with magic of their own, and their island was protected by divine enchantments that even he could not break. Worse, if they had discovered the prophecy, and they almost certainly had, given their seer's abilities, they might actively oppose his carefully laid plans for Harry's future. Everything he had worked toward, the greater good he had sacrificed so much for, could unravel if Harry was raised outside his influence. Dumbledore disapparated to Hogwarts, where Minerva McGonagall waited anxiously for news. "You found him?" she asked as soon as he appeared in his office. "I believe so. But retrieving him will be complicated." He explained his suspicions about Themyscira. McGonagall's face paled. "The Amazons? But they've had no contact with the wizarding world for centuries. How would Harry have gotten there?" "Accidental apparition, strengthened by desperation and his own considerable magic," Dumbledore theorized. "The Blood Wards may have interacted with his mother's sacrifice in ways I didn't anticipate." "And now?" McGonagall asked. "What will you do?" Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. "For now, we maintain the illusion that Harry is still with his relatives. No one can know he's missing. Meanwhile, I will attempt diplomatic contact with the Amazons. And if diplomacy fails? Then, my dear Minerva, we may have a very significant problem indeed." Summer faded into autumn on Themyscira, though the island's magical climate kept the days warm and pleasant. Harry had been there for 3 months, and already he felt transformed. His body, once skinny and weak from neglect, had begun to develop wiry strength from daily training. His nightmares about the cupboard under the stairs had all but vanished, replaced by dreams of flying and adventure. Most importantly, he had found a friend in Diana and something like family in the Amazons. "Higher, Harry!" Diana called, demonstrating the correct way to block with a wooden practice sword. "Protect your head." Harry adjusted his stance and successfully deflected Diana's next swing. They had progressed quickly in their training, moving from basic movements to actual sparring with wooden weapons. "Good," praised Philippus, who was overseeing their practice today. Again, but faster this time. The children resumed their sparring, wooden swords clacking together as they moved through the practice sequence. Diana was naturally more skilled, she'd been training since she could walk, but Harry's quick reflexes kept him competitive. After training, they had their daily swimming lesson. Harry, who couldn't swim at all when he arrived, now moved through the water with growing confidence. Diana, of course, swam like she was born to it, diving deep and staying under so long that Harry sometimes worried, until she surfaced with a mischievous grin, often holding a pretty shell or stone as a prize. "Race you to the rocks," she challenged after they'd practiced their strokes. "No fair. You always win," Harry complained good-naturedly. "Maybe today's different," Diana teased, already striking out for the small formation of rocks 20 yards offshore. Harry followed, his technique less graceful but effective nonetheless. He had closed half the distance to Diana when a strange sensation stopped him mid-stroke. A pressure built behind his eyes. His scar burned suddenly, white-hot pain lancing through his forehead. Harry gasped, inhaling water as he lost his rhythm. Images flashed through his mind, a pale face with red eyes, a high cold laugh, a flash of green light. "Harry." Diana's voice seemed far away. Then strong arms were around him, pulling him to the surface. "Harry, what's wrong?" He coughed, expelling water from his lungs as Diana kept him afloat. The pain in his scar receded as quickly as it had come, leaving him disoriented. "My head," he managed to say between coughs. "It hurt. My scar." Diana's face darkened with concern. She helped him back to shore, where Philippus waited with a worried expression. "What happened?" the Amazon demanded. "His scar hurt him," Diana explained. "He went under." Philippus knelt beside Harry, examining his forehead with gentle fingers. "The scar is inflamed," she noted. "We must tell the Queen." She carried Harry to the healing chambers, where Epione examined him thoroughly. By then, the pain had subsided completely, leaving only a lingering sense of unease. "What did you see when the pain came?" Epione asked. Harry described the flashes, the face, the laugh, the green light. Epione's expression grew grave. "Memory fragments," she murmured. "The scar connects you to him still." "To Voldemort?" Harry asked, fear creeping into his voice. But he's dead, isn't he? Epione exchanged a glance with Philippus. Rest now, she said instead of answering. I will prepare a poultice for your scar. Later that evening, Hippolyta came to see him in his chambers. Diana had refused to leave his side since the incident, and she sat cross-legged on the end of his bed as the Queen entered. How do you feel, Harry? Hippolyta asked. Better now, he assured her. It doesn't hurt anymore. Hippolyta sat beside him. Epione told me what happened. These visions, these pains, they confirm what we suspected about your scar. It forms a connection between you and the one who gave it to you. But if he's dead? Harry began. We believe he is not truly dead, Hippolyta said carefully. Defeated, yes. Disembodied, perhaps. But not gone entirely. The fragment in your scar is proof of that. Diana scooted closer. So the bad wizard could come back. He may try, Hippolyta acknowledged. Which is why we must sever this connection. She looked directly at Harry. We have found a way, but it will not be easy or painless. Harry swallowed hard. What do I have to do? You need only be brave for one night, Hippolyta told him. At the next full moon, we will perform a ritual to draw out the fragment and destroy it. Epione has studied ancient texts and consulted with. She hesitated, sources knowledgeable in such matters. Will it hurt? Harry asked in a small voice. Hippolyta didn't lie to him. Yes. But you will not face it alone. And when it is done, your mind will be truly your own again. Diana took Harry's hand. I'll stay with you the whole time, she promised fiercely. No matter what. Harry squeezed her hand gratefully. Despite his fear, he felt a sense of relief. The idea of having a piece of Voldemort inside him was far worse than any temporary pain from removing it. I'll do it, he decided. Hippolyta nodded approvingly. You show courage worthy of an Amazon, Harry Potter. Rest now. Your training continues tomorrow, and you must be strong for the ritual. After she left, Diana remained, unwilling to leave her friend alone after his scare. Eventually, she fell asleep at the foot of his bed, and the palace attendant simply covered her with a blanket rather than waking her. Harry stayed awake longer, watching the moonlight cast shadows on the ceiling and thinking about everything he'd learned. He was afraid, of the ritual, of Voldemort, of the future, but not like he'd been afraid at the Dursleys. This fear didn't paralyze him. Instead, it strengthened his resolve. Whatever came next, he would face it. Not alone, as he once might have, but with Diana at his side and the Amazons at his back. For the first time in his young life, Harry Potter felt truly protected. The night of the full moon arrived all too quickly. Throughout the day, Amazons made preparations, setting up an ancient stone circle on the highest point of the island. Hippolyta had explained that the ritual would draw on both Amazon magic and the power of the gods to remove the soul fragment without harming Harry himself. Will I still be able to do magic after? Harry had asked during his final briefing with Epione. The Amazon healer had been teaching him breathing techniques to help manage pain. Your magic is your own, she assured him. The fragment is a parasite, not a part of you. Removing it may even allow your natural abilities to flourish more freely. As sunset approached, Harry was brought to the stone circle. He wore only a simple white robe, and symbols had been painted on his skin in shimmering silver ink. The full moon rose over the ocean, casting an ethereal light over the proceedings. Hippolyta stood at the head of the circle, dressed in ceremonial armor that gleamed in the moonlight. 12 senior Amazons, including Artemis, Philippus, and Epione, formed a ring around a central altar of marble. Diana, despite protests that she was too young, had been allowed to attend, though she was positioned outside the main circle. Remember your breathing, Epione reminded Harry as she led him to the altar. And remember that we are all with you. Harry nodded, his mouth too dry for words. He lay down on the cool marble, staring up at the stars as the Amazons took their positions. Hippolyta raised her arms. "Goddesses of Olympus, we call upon your wisdom and strength. A child stands before you, marked by dark magic not of his choosing. We ask for your aid in cleansing what has been tainted, in freeing what has been bound." The air seemed to thicken as she spoke, the moonlight intensifying until it focused like a beam on Harry's forehead. His scar began to tingle, then burn. Epione placed a golden bowl beside his head. "This will draw out the fragment," she explained quietly. "It will fight to remain. You must fight harder to expel it." The Amazons began to chant in ancient Greek, their voices rising and falling in hypnotic rhythm. The burning in Harry's scar increased until he had to clench his teeth against crying out. He tried to focus on his breathing as Epione had taught him, but the pain kept pulling him back. "Visualize it leaving you," Epione instructed. "See it as something separate, something foreign to be cast out." Harry tried. In his mind's eye, he pictured the fragment as a dark, oily stain on his forehead. He imagined pushing it away, forcing it out through his scar. The pain spiked suddenly, and this time he couldn't hold back a scream. It felt as though someone was driving a white-hot needle into his forehead, trying to split his skull open from within. "Harry!" Diana's panicked voice came from outside the circle. "Stop! You're hurting him." "Stay back, Diana," Hippolyta commanded, never breaking her ritual stance. "Trust in the process." The chanting intensified. Harry felt something moving beneath his skin, something alive and angry. It clawed at him from inside, desperate to maintain its hold. "Fight it, Harry," Epione urged. "It has no right to you." Harry gathered every ounce of will he possessed and pushed mentally against the invading presence. "I don't want you," he thought fiercely. "Get out." The resistance increased, agonizing pressure building behind his scar. Then, suddenly, Diana was beside him, having broken through the circle. She grabbed his hand. "You can do this," she whispered fiercely. "You're stronger than it is." Something about her presence, her absolute faith in him, gave Harry new strength. With one final mental push, he felt the thing in his scar tear loose. A black, tar-like substance began to seep from his lightning bolt scar, dripping into the golden bowl beside him. The instant the substance left his body, Harry felt lighter, cleaner somehow. The pain began to subside, replaced by a cool wave of relief. The black substance in the bowl writhed and emitted a high, cold scream that made everyone flinch. Hippolyta stepped forward, holding a silver dagger. "By the power of Hera, I banish this abomination from our realm." She plunged the dagger into the center of the bowl. The black substance shrieked one final time, then burst into flame and disintegrated into ash. Silence fell over the stone circle. Harry lay panting on the altar, exhausted but triumphant. The burning in his scar had completely subsided for the first time since he could remember. Diana still clutched his hand, tears streaming down her face but a fierce smile on her lips. "You did it," she whispered. Epione approached with a damp cloth, gently wiping Harry's forehead. "The scar remains," she noted, "but the taint is gone. How do you feel, child?" "Different," Harry said, surprised by how true it was. His thoughts felt clearer, as if a constant background noise he hadn't even noticed had suddenly fallen silent. "Good different." Hippolyta helped him sit up. "The ritual is complete. The fragment has been destroyed." She looked at Diana with a mixture of exasperation and pride. Although some people have difficulty following instructions, Diana didn't look remotely apologetic. "He needed me." "Yes," Hippolyta agreed softly. "It seems he did." The Amazons escorted Harry back to the palace, where he fell into the deepest, most peaceful sleep of his life. For the first time since the night his parents died, he was truly himself, unshared and uninfluenced by the dark wizard who had marked him. Thousands of miles away, in a forest in Albania, a wraith-like entity that had once been Lord Voldemort felt a searing pain tear through what remained of his fractured soul. One of his anchors to the physical world, the one created unintentionally when he attacked the Potter child, had been destroyed. The wraith howled in rage and fear, scattering the forest creatures that had the misfortune to be nearby. Someone had found the boy. Someone had discovered his horcruxes. Someone threatened everything. As the pain subsided, cold calculation replaced panic. He needed to regain corporeal form sooner than planned. He needed to verify his other safeguards remained intact. Most of all, he needed to find Harry Potter and finish what he had started 5 years ago. But first, he needed a servant. The wraith drifted deeper into the forest, searching for a suitable host to possess temporarily. Time was now of the essence, and revenge would be all the sweeter for the wait. In his office at Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore jolted awake as one of his silver instruments exploded in a shower of sparks. He hurried to examine it, his face paling as he recognized which monitoring charm had failed. No, he whispered. They couldn't have. But the evidence was clear. The connection between Harry and Voldemort, the connection he had planned to use, at the proper time, to end the Dark Lord once and for all, had been severed. The Amazons had found the horcrux in Harry's scar and destroyed it. Decades of planning now lay in ruins. The prophecy still bound the two together, but one of Dumbledore's key advantages in guiding that final confrontation was gone. He sank into his chair, mind racing. He needed to accelerate his plans to retrieve Harry. The diplomatic channels he'd been pursuing moved too slowly. The boy had already been on Themyscira for months. Every day there changed him, shaped him in ways Dumbledore couldn't control. The twinkling blue eyes hardened with resolve. It was time for more direct action. For the greater good, Harry Potter must be brought back to fulfill his destiny as Dumbledore had planned it. He reached for parchment and began writing urgent messages to certain members of the Order of the Phoenix. People who could help him reach Themyscira, people with connections to old magic that might pierce the divine barriers protecting the island. If the Amazons wanted war over a prophecy, Albus Dumbledore was prepared to give them one. Diana found Harry at the training grounds early the next morning, already practicing with a wooden sword against a dummy. Since the ritual 2 weeks ago, his energy and focus had increased dramatically. Even Artemis had commented on the improvement in his form. "You're up early," Diana noted, grabbing her own practice sword. "Again." Harry grinned at her. "Couldn't sleep. I feel. I don't know, like I need to move." "Race you around the perimeter," she challenged. "You always win," Harry pointed out, but he was already setting aside his sword. "Maybe today's different," Diana quoted his own words back at him with a smirk. As they raced along the edge of the training grounds, Harry felt a joy he'd never known at the Dursleys. Here, he was allowed, encouraged, even, to be strong, to run fast, to excel. Here, no one punished him for doing better than his cousin. Diana still won, of course, but Harry was closer than ever before. They collapsed on the grass, laughing and catching their breath. "I talked to Mother last night," Diana said when their breathing had steadied. "About the wizard people looking for you." Harry's smile faded. "What did she say?" "That they're getting closer. That old wizard, Dumbledore, he's found people who know how to send messages to Themyscira." "Does that mean they can come here too?" Diana shook her head. "Not without permission. But Mother thinks they'll keep trying. She says we should be prepared." Harry plucked a blade of grass, twisting it between his fingers. Do you think I should just talk to them? Tell them I want to stay here. Would they listen?" Diana asked skeptically. "Probably not," Harry admitted. "From what your mom has told me, this Dumbledore person has everything planned out. Me living with the Dursleys, going to wizard school when I'm 11, eventually fighting Voldemort, he doesn't sound like someone who changes his plans easily." Diana rolled onto her stomach, propping her chin on her hands. Well, his plans are stupid. You shouldn't have to live with people who are mean to you just because of some prophecy. Yeah. Harry lay back, staring at the sky. I wish I could just stay here forever. Why can't you? Because eventually Voldemort will come back. And when he does, he'll come after me. I don't want to bring that kind of danger to Themyscira. Diana punched his arm lightly. We're Amazons, remember? We don't fear danger. You're an Amazon, Harry corrected. I'm just. I don't know what I am anymore. You're Harry, Diana said simply. My best friend. The boy who survived death and a piece of an evil wizard's soul. And you're going to be a great warrior someday, Mother says so. Harry smiled at her unwavering confidence. Thanks, Diana. For what? For being my friend. For helping me during the ritual. For everything, I guess. Diana grinned. You're welcome. Now come on, we're going to be late for breakfast, and I'm starving. As they raced back toward the palace, Harry felt a renewed determination. Whatever Dumbledore and the wizarding world wanted from him, whatever destiny the prophecy had laid out, he would face it on his own terms. With the Amazon's training and Diana's friendship, he had something worth fighting for now. And he wasn't about to let anyone take that away from him. Chapter 2, The Warrior's Path. 3 years could change a lot about a kid. For Harry Potter, they changed everything. Come on, Harry. You're too slow. Diana called, already 15 feet up the sheer rock face of the training cliff. Harry wiped sweat from his brow and found his next handhold. Not all of us are literally blessed by the gods, you know. But even as he complained, his fingers found tiny crevices in the rock, his bare toes pushing against nearly invisible outcroppings. 3 years of Amazon training had transformed the malnourished, hesitant 5-year-old into a lean, confident 8-year-old who could climb, swim, run, and fight with skills that would have astonished his former guardians. Excuses. Diana shot back with a laugh, now 20 feet above him. Harry grinned and pushed himself harder, his muscles burning pleasantly with the effort. The morning sun beat down on his back as he scaled the cliff face, moving from handhold to handhold with increasing speed. Still, Diana reached the top a full minute before him. She sat cross-legged on the plateau, smirking as he hauled himself over the edge. Took you long enough, she teased, offering her water skin. Harry took a grateful drink. You got a head start. I did not. Did two children. Artemis's stern voice cut through their bickering as the warrior joined them on the plateau. Despite the 100-foot climb, she wasn't even breathing hard. If you have energy to argue, you have energy for sparring. Harry and Diana exchanged glances, half excited, half apprehensive. Sparring with Artemis was always intense. Weapons or hand-to-hand? Harry asked, already knowing the answer. Both. In battle, you use whatever you have. Artemis drew 2 wooden training swords from her back. Diana first. Harry stepped back to watch as Diana squared off against the Amazon warrior. At 10 years old, Diana was already showing the extraordinary abilities that came from being Zeus's daughter, though Harry was one of the few who knew that particular secret. She moved with speed and grace that surpassed many adult Amazons. But Artemis was still Artemis. The veteran warrior deflected Diana's aggressive attack with casual ease, turning the princess's momentum against her. Within seconds, Diana hit the ground with a thud. Too eager, Artemis critiqued. You telegraph your strikes with your eyes. Diana bounced back to her feet, frustration evident in her stance. Again. This time she lasted longer, her wooden sword a blur as she pressed her attack. Harry watched intently, studying both fighters. Where Diana was all explosive power and speed, Artemis was economy of motion, never moving more than necessary, using Diana's own force to unbalance her. When Diana finally hit the ground again, Artemis nodded with approval. Better. You controlled your emotions that time. She turned to Harry. Your turn. Harry stepped forward, accepting the wooden sword from Diana, who gave his shoulder an encouraging squeeze as they passed. Remember what we practiced, she whispered. Harry nodded and took his stance opposite Artemis. Where Diana fought with divine strength and speed, Harry had developed a different style, one that relied on precision, unpredictability, and a growing ability to incorporate his magic into combat. He circled Artemis cautiously, sword held in a defensive position. The warrior watched him with narrow eyes, waiting for his attack. But Harry didn't attack. 3 years of getting repeatedly knocked down had taught him patience. Instead, he maintained the circle, occasionally feinting but never committing. Sometime today, Harry, Artemis said dryly. He smiled innocently, then dropped and swept his leg at her ankles while simultaneously bringing his sword up toward her midsection. It was a move they'd never practiced, something he'd come up with on his own. Artemis jumped over the leg sweep, as he'd expected, but had to twist awkwardly to avoid the sword thrust. Harry used that split second to roll past her and spring to his feet behind her. He'd managed to flank her, a small victory, but Artemis recovered instantly, spinning to block his next strike with such force that the impact jarred his arms. 3 rapid countermoves later, Harry found himself disarmed, his wooden sword skittering across the plateau. Most opponents would have declared victory then, but Harry and Artemis weren't done. As she moved in to finish him with a tap to the chest, Harry focused on the fallen sword, reaching for that familiar tingle of magic within him. The wooden sword trembled, then shot into his outstretched hand just in time to block Artemis's strike. The Amazon warrior's eyes widened slightly, the closest thing to surprise she ever showed. Harry used the moment to duck under her guard and tap his sword against her side. Point to me, he said, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Artemis straightened, her expression unreadable for a moment before she nodded. Point to you. Your magic is getting stronger. And more controlled, Diana added, bouncing excitedly at the edge of the sparring circle. Did you see that, Artemis? He didn't even have to say anything this time. I saw. Artemis took Harry's sword and returned both training weapons to their sheaths on her back. You've both improved. Diana, your strength and speed continue to grow. Harry, your integration of magic with physical combat shows promise. Coming from Artemis, this was effusive praise. Both children beamed. However, she continued, instantly sobering them, you remain children playing at being warriors. Real combat is chaotic, unpredictable, and deadly. Harry and Diana finished in unison, having heard this particular lecture many times. Artemis's lips twitched. Precisely. Now, return to the palace. The Queen wishes to see you both after midday meal. As they began the climb down, much trickier than going up, Harry asked, do you know why? Artemis's expression turned serious. News has come from the outside world. The wizard who seeks you has become more persistent. Harry's stomach tightened. He'd known this day would come eventually. For 3 years, Queen Hippolyta had shielded him from Dumbledore's attempts to reclaim him, but they'd always known it couldn't last forever. Will I have to leave? He asked, the question he'd been dreading since his first day on Themyscira. That is for the Queen to decide, Artemis replied. But know this, Harry Potter, you have earned a place among us, child though you are. The Amazons do not abandon their own. With that surprisingly gentle reassurance, she began descending the cliff with impossible grace, leaving the children to follow at their own pace. Diana caught Harry's troubled expression. Don't worry, she said firmly. Mother won't let them take you. And neither will I. Harry managed a smile. If there was one thing he'd learned in 3 years on Themyscira, it was that Diana's determination was a force of nature all its own. The palace throne room buzzed with unusual activity when Harry and Diana arrived after lunch. Normally a place of stately calm, today it held dozens of Amazons in full battle armor, gathered in tight discussion groups around the central space. Queen Hippolyta sat on her throne, deep in conversation with her top advisors, Philippus, Menelip, and Epion. When she spotted the children, she gestured them forward. Diana, Harry, she greeted them formally. Thank you for coming promptly. Diana performed a perfect princess's bow. Harry, never quite as graceful with royal protocol, attempted to copy her and only wobbled slightly. What's happening, mother? Diana asked, eyeing the armored warriors with excitement. Is there going to be a battle? Not if wisdom prevails, Hippolyta replied. But we must be prepared nonetheless. She focused her gaze on Harry. The wizard Dumbledore has requested a formal audience with Themyscira's queen. Harry's heart seemed to stutter. He's coming here. He wishes to. After 3 years of increasingly desperate attempts to locate you, he has finally found someone with knowledge of how to send a direct message to us. How? Diana asked. I thought Themyscira was hidden from the outside world. There are always those who remember the old ways, Philippus explained. In this case, a witch descended from the Amazon's last interaction with the magical world, centuries ago. She performed the necessary rituals to send a message across our barriers. Hippolyta held up a scroll sealed with purple wax. He requests permission to bring a small delegation to discuss your safe return to Britain. Harry's throat went dry. What did you tell him? I have not yet replied. Hippolyta's eyes softened slightly. Before I do, I wish to speak with you. Me? Yes, Harry. While you are under my protection and care, you are also old enough now to have some say in your future. Tell me truly, do you wish to meet with this wizard? To hear what he has to say. Harry hesitated, torn. Part of him was fiercely opposed to anything that might take him away from Themyscira, from the only real home he'd ever known. But another part, the part that had absorbed countless Amazon lessons about courage and confronting one's enemies, wanted to look Dumbledore in the eye and tell him exactly why he wasn't going back. I think. He said slowly, I think I should meet him. Not alone, he added quickly, seeing Diana's alarmed expression. But I want to tell him myself that I'm staying here. Hippolyta nodded, something like pride flickering in her expression. A brave choice. Very well, I shall grant Dumbledore his audience, with conditions. He may bring only 2 others. They must surrender their wands upon arrival. And they may speak with you only in my presence. And mine, Diana interjected firmly. Hippolyta arched an eyebrow at her daughter but didn't contradict her. I will send the reply today. They will likely arrive within the week. Will they try to take Harry by force? Diana asked, unconsciously shifting closer to her friend. They may try, Philippus said grimly. But they will not succeed. The Queen stood, addressing not just Harry and Diana but all the Amazons present. For 3,000 years, Themyscira has stood apart from the world of men. We have watched their wars, their cruelties, their endless thirst for power. We have kept our island a sanctuary of peace and justice. Her voice strengthened. But there are times when even Amazons must engage with the outside world. When this wizard comes, he will find not just a boy he seeks to control, but the full might of Themyscira standing with him. Let all preparations be made. The assembled warriors saluted, fists over hearts, and dispersed to their duties. Harry felt a complex mix of emotions, anxiety about facing Dumbledore, but also an overwhelming gratitude for the Amazon's protection. Harry, Hippolyta said more gently, in the days before they arrive, you should continue your training as normal. But I would also like Menelip to work with you on mental defenses. Mental defenses? The seer stepped forward. Wizards have ways of reading minds, child. Dumbledore is particularly skilled in this art. I will teach you techniques to shield your thoughts. Like when we cleared the soul fragment? Harry asked, remembering the painful ritual from 3 years ago. Similar principles, but much less traumatic, Manolip assured him with a rare smile. Your mind is your own sanctuary. No one should enter uninvited. Diana tugged at Harry's sleeve. Can I learn too? Of course, Princess, Manolip nodded. The techniques will serve you well in any negotiation. As they left the throne room, Harry felt Diana's hand slip into his, squeezing reassuringly. We'll face them together, she promised. And if they try anything, I'll punch this Dumbledore right in his beard. Despite his anxiety, Harry laughed at the mental image of tiny Diana taking on the powerful wizard he'd heard so much about. I'd like to see that. You might get to, she said with perfect seriousness. Nobody takes my best friend away. The next few days passed in a blur of intensive training. In addition to their regular combat lessons, Harry and Diana spent hours each day with Manolip, learning to recognize and repel mental intrusions. Imagine your mind as a palace, the seer instructed. Every memory, every thought has its place. To protect them, you must know their arrangement better than any intruder could. Harry found the visualization easier than expected. He pictured his mind as a version of the Amazon palace, with different wings for different types of memories. His happiest moments with Diana in the sun-drenched courtyard. Combat training in the armory. Quiet evenings listening to Hippolyta's stories in the royal library. And deep below, in a sealed vault, the few fragmented memories of his parents and the night they died, now clearer since the soul fragment's removal, but still painful to access. Good, Manolip praised, lightly probing his defenses. Now, when you feel an intrusion, don't fight directly, redirect. Show what you're willing to share while keeping your true thoughts protected. Harry practiced for hours, until he could maintain his mental defenses even while Diana tried to distract him with increasingly ridiculous faces and noises. Enough, Manolip finally declared on the evening before Dumbledore's scheduled arrival. You have both learned quickly. Remember, constant awareness is your strongest protection. If you feel even the slightest pressure against your mind, reinforce your shields immediately. After she left, Diana flopped dramatically across Harry's bed. My brain hurts. Mine too, Harry agreed, sitting cross-legged beside her. But it's worth it if it keeps Dumbledore out of our heads. Diana rolled onto her side to face him. Are you scared? About tomorrow? Harry considered lying, then remembered this was Diana, the one person he never had to pretend with. Yeah. A bit. What are you most afraid of? That he'll have some way to force me to go back. Some magic we don't know about. Or. Harry hesitated, voicing his deepest fear, that he'll convince me I should go back. For the prophecy. Diana sat up, her expression fierce. He won't. You're stronger than that. But what if he's right? What if people die because I'm hiding here instead of facing Voldemort? That's stupid, Diana stated flatly. You're 8, Harry. No one should expect an 8-year-old to fight an evil wizard. That's what grown-up wizards are for. Put like that, it did sound absurd. Harry smiled gratefully. You always make things simple. Because they are simple. Adults just like to make things complicated. She flopped back down. Besides, Mother says prophecies only have the power we give them. If everyone stopped believing in this one, it would just be words. I wish it was that easy. It could be, Diana insisted. If enough people stood against it. They fell silent for a while, listening to the distant sound of the sea through the open window. Whatever happens tomorrow, Harry finally said, thank you. For what? For being my friend. For never treating me like I'm different or special because of the prophecy or the scar or any of it. Diana snorted. You are different and special, dummy. But not because of any of that. Just because you're Harry. He grinned, warmth spreading through his chest. And you're Diana. The most annoying, bossy best friend anyone could have. She kicked him lightly. And don't you forget it. Dawn broke clear and bright on the day of Dumbledore's arrival. Harry woke early, too nervous to sleep, and found himself drawn to the eastern cliffs where he'd first appeared on Themyscira 3 years ago. The sun had just cleared the horizon, turning the sea to molten gold. Harry sat on the cliff edge, legs dangling, and tried to calm his racing thoughts. "I thought I might find you here." He turned to see Queen Hippolyta approaching, dressed not in her usual royal attire but in full battle armor, her golden breastplate catching the early morning light. Even after 3 years, the sight of the Amazon Queen in her warrior aspect was intimidating. "Your Majesty," Harry greeted her, starting to rise. She waved him back down and, to his surprise, sat beside him on the cliff edge, her armor clinking softly as she settled. "Nervous about today?" she asked, gazing out at the horizon. "Yes," Harry admitted. "I keep trying to imagine what he'll say, what I should say back." "Words can indeed be weapons," Hippolyta agreed. "But remember, Harry, you are not facing him alone." "I know. And I'm grateful. More than I can say." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Hippolyta spoke again. "When you first came to us, I was uncertain whether allowing you to stay was the right decision. A male child on Themyscira, after thousands of years." Harry nodded, understanding her hesitation. He knew the history now, how the Amazons had suffered at the hands of men before retreating to their island sanctuary. "But I have watched you grow these past 3 years," she continued. "I have seen your kindness, your determination, your respect for our ways. And I have seen how you have helped Diana grow as well, given her someone to protect, to teach, to compete with." She turned to look at him directly. "Whatever Dumbledore says today, know this, you have earned your place here, Harry Potter. Themyscira is your home for as long as you wish it to be." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. Coming from the usually reserved Queen, this was an extraordinary declaration. "Thank you," he managed to say. "I won't let you down." Hippolyta's lips curved in a rare smile. "I know you won't." She rose gracefully to her feet. "Now, I believe my daughter is searching the entire palace for you. We should return before she organizes a full island-wide hunt." Sure enough, they met Diana racing up the path toward them, her expression shifting from worry to relief when she spotted Harry. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere." "Sorry," Harry said. "I needed some space to think." Diana seemed ready to scold him further but caught herself, noticing his solemn mood. Instead, she simply nodded. "Well, come on. They're arriving at midday on the South Beach. Artemis wants us to practice shield drills one more time before then." Harry glanced questioningly at Hippolyta. "Go," she encouraged him. "Training will help focus your mind." By the time midday approached, Harry felt calmer, centered by the familiar routine of combat practice. He bathed and changed into a formal version of Amazon training attire, a tunic of finer material with subtle embroidery at the edges, belted with a leather band bearing a small silver symbol of Themyscira. Diana met him outside his chambers, similarly dressed but with the royal crest worked in gold on her belt. "Ready?" she asked, studying his face. Harry took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready." They joined the formal reception party at the South Beach, Queen Hippolyta in full ceremonial armor, flanked by her royal guard. Dozens of Amazon warriors lined the path from beach to palace, standing at attention with spears and swords at the ready. The message was clear: visitors were tolerated, not welcomed. "Remember your mental shields," Menelip murmured as Harry took his place slightly behind the Queen. "I will." At precisely midday, the air over the water shimmered and distorted. A burst of silver light flared, momentarily blinding. When it faded, 3 figures stood on the beach, 2 men and a woman, all wearing long robes that seemed impractical for the warm island weather. Harry recognized Albus Dumbledore instantly from descriptions, tall and thin, with flowing silver hair and beard, half-moon spectacles perched on a crooked nose. The old wizard's eyes swept the assembled Amazons, widening slightly at the impressive display of force before settling on Harry with an intensity that made him instinctively strengthen his mental barriers. The woman beside Dumbledore was older, with her hair pulled back in a severe bun, her expression stern but not unkind. The third figure was a tall black man with a single gold earring, his watchful gaze taking in every detail of their surroundings. Albus Dumbledore, Queen Hippolyta's voice rang out across the beach. You stand on the shores of Themyscira by my permission alone. State your purpose and present your companions. Dumbledore bowed deeply. Queen Hippolyta, I thank you for granting us this audience. May I present Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and Kingsley Shacklebolt, Auror of the British Ministry of Magic. Both companions bowed as they were introduced. Before we proceed, Hippolyta continued, your wands. For a moment, tension crackled in the air as the three wizards hesitated. Then Dumbledore nodded, drawing his wand and holding it out horizontally across his palms. McGonagall and Shacklebolt reluctantly followed suit. Philippus stepped forward, collecting the wands in a specially prepared silver box. These will be returned upon your departure, Hippolyta informed them. Now, follow. The procession moved up from the beach toward the palace, Amazons falling into formation around the visitors. Harry could feel Dumbledore's eyes on him as they walked, but the old wizard made no attempt to speak until they reached the formal audience chamber. Inside, Hippolyta took her seat on the throne, with Harry and Diana standing to her right. The three visitors were positioned before her, with Amazon guards at their backs. Now, Hippolyta said, speak your piece, Albus Dumbledore. The old wizard stepped forward, his manner genial despite the hostile reception. First, may I say what a privilege it is to stand in legendary Themyscira. Few men have ever, spare us your pleasantries, Hippolyta interrupted. You have spent 3 years attempting to breach our borders. You are here now. What do you want? Dumbledore's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened slightly. Very well. I have come for Harry Potter. The boy has a destiny in the wizarding world, a vital role to play that cannot be fulfilled here. You speak of the prophecy, Hippolyta stated. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. You know of it? We know that a self-proclaimed seer predicted a child would vanquish your dark wizard. We know this prophecy has been used to place an unconscionable burden on a child's shoulders. And we know you, Dumbledore, have manipulated events to ensure this child would be raised according to your design. The headmaster's genial mask slipped slightly. I have only ever acted for the greater good. Ah, yes. The greater good. Hippolyta's voice dripped contempt. The excuse of tyrants throughout history. McGonagall stepped forward. If I may, your majesty. Whatever you may think of prophecies or Albus's methods, the fact remains that Harry belongs in the wizarding world. His parents would have wanted him safe and loved, Hippolyta cut in. Can you claim he was either with the family you placed him with, Dumbledore? Silence fell. Harry could see the old wizard calculating his response. The Dursleys provided necessary protection through blood magic, Dumbledore finally said. While perhaps not ideal caretakers, they kept him in a cupboard, Diana interrupted, unable to contain herself any longer. They called him freak and didn't feed him properly. They let their son hurt him. McGonagall's head snapped toward Dumbledore, her expression shocked. Albus, you said he was well cared for. Minerva, the blood protection was essential. Certain sacrifices were necessary for the greater good. Harry spoke for the first time, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. Every eye in the room turned to him. Dumbledore's gaze softened as he addressed Harry directly. My boy, I understand you may feel abandoned or mistreated. But there are forces at work beyond your understanding. Lord Voldemort will return, and when he does, only you can truly defeat him. The prophecy, we know about the prophecy, Harry interrupted. We also removed the soul fragment from my scar 3 years ago. The effect of these words was electric. Dumbledore physically staggered, his face draining of color. McGonagall gasped. The Auror, Shacklebolt, moved his hand instinctively toward where his wand would have been. Impossible, Dumbledore whispered. Quite possible, Hippolyta replied coolly. Our healers identified the abomination and extracted it during a ritual under the full moon. Harry has been free of Voldemort's influence for 3 years. You don't understand what you've done, Dumbledore said, his voice urgent now. That connection was vital to your plans, Hippolyta finished. Not to Harry's well-being. Harry stepped forward, emboldened by the Queen's support. I know who I am now, Professor Dumbledore. I know about my parents, about Voldemort, about the prophecy. But I also know that I'm not just the boy who lived. I'm Harry. And I choose to stay on Themyscira. Diana moved to stand beside him, her shoulder touching his in silent solidarity. Dumbledore seemed to age before their eyes, the twinkle in his blue eyes dimming. Harry, I understand your attachment to this place, to these people. But your destiny, his destiny is his own, Hippolyta stated firmly. Not yours to dictate. The prophecy has no power except what we give it, Harry said, echoing Diana's words from the night before. The Amazons have taught me that. Dumbledore exchanged glances with his companions. McGonagall looked troubled, while Shacklebolt remained impassive. Perhaps, the headmaster said carefully, we might speak with Harry alone. Just for a few moments. No. Hippolyta's response was immediate and final. You have delivered your message. He has given his answer. Unless you have new information to present, this audience is concluded. For a moment, it seemed Dumbledore might argue further. Then he sighed, shoulders slumping slightly in defeat, or in a very good imitation of defeat. May I at least say one thing to Harry before we depart? Hippolyta considered, then nodded once. Dumbledore looked directly into Harry's eyes. The boy felt a subtle pressure against his mental shields, exactly as Menelip had warned, and reinforced them immediately. Disappointment flickered across the old wizard's face so quickly Harry nearly missed it. Harry, your parents sacrificed everything to save you from Lord Voldemort. They would be proud of the strong young man you're becoming. His voice gentled. But they were also deeply committed to the wizarding world. James and Lily fought to protect that world, not to abandon it. I hope, in time, you'll consider honoring their sacrifice by returning to the world they died defending. It was a masterful appeal, Harry had to admit. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. What would his parents think of his choice to stay on Themyscira? But then he remembered something Hippolyta had told him years ago, true love sets free, it does not bind. My parents died so I could live, Harry responded steadily. Not so I could be a weapon in someone else's war. I think they'd want me to be safe and happy. He glanced at Diana, then back to Dumbledore. I am both, here. Something like genuine sadness crossed the old wizard's face. I see. Then I shall not press further today. He turned to Hippolyta. Queen Hippolyta, I thank you for this audience. While we disagree on Harry's future, I respect your hospitality. Your wands will be returned to you at the beach, Hippolyta replied, rising from her throne. Philippus will escort you. As the visitors turned to leave, Dumbledore paused. One final matter, if I may. Lord Voldemort's followers remain at large. Some grow bolder, sensing their master may not be truly gone. Should they somehow learn of Harry's location? Themyscira has stood against greater threats than dark wizards, Hippolyta stated. But your warning is noted. With that, the audience concluded. As the Amazons escorted the 3 visitors back toward the beach, Harry released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. You did well, Hippolyta told him, resting a hand briefly on his shoulder. Very well, Diana agreed enthusiastically. Especially when you said that thing about your parents wanting you to be happy. Harry managed a smile, but his mind was still processing the encounter. He tried to read my thoughts, just like you said he would. Of course he did, Hippolyta said grimly. Dumbledore did not become leader of magical Britain by accepting defeat easily. This was merely his first attempt. You think he'll try again? Harry asked. I know he will. The Queen's expression hardened. Which is why we must accelerate your training, Harry. And why we must learn more about the enemy who truly threatens you, not Dumbledore, but Voldemort himself. 2 days later, Diana found Harry at his favorite spot on the eastern cliffs, staring out at the horizon. There you are, she said, dropping down beside him. Mother's looking for you. The scouting party returned. Harry perked up at this news. After Dumbledore's visit, Hippolyta had dispatched a small team of Amazons to the outside world, their first such mission in centuries. Their goal, gather intelligence about Voldemort's followers and current activities in magical Britain. Did they find anything? He asked, already standing. Don't know. But they brought someone back with them. Someone? Like, a prisoner? Diana nodded, eyes bright with excitement. A wizard. They're questioning him now. They raced back to the palace, where they found Hippolyta, Philippus, and Menelip in the secure chamber beneath the throne room. Seated in a chair in the center, bound by a glowing golden rope, was a thin, nervous-looking man with patchy brown hair. Swear I don't know anything about any Death Eater revival, the man was saying as they entered. I'm just a trader in magical artifacts. I mind my own business. He fell silent upon seeing the children, his eyes widening as they fixed on Harry's scar. Bloody hell, he whispered. It's true. You've got Harry Potter. Harry, Hippolyta acknowledged their arrival without taking her eyes off the prisoner. Diana. This is Mr. Mundungus Fletcher, who our scouts found attempting to sell cursed objects in Nocturne Alley. I told you, those amulets were just antiques. Not my fault if they carried a little bad luck. Philippus stepped closer to the bound man, her hand resting meaningfully on her sword hilt. You will speak when questioned, thief. Otherwise, remain silent. Fletcher swallowed hard and nodded. Mr. Fletcher has been cooperative so far, Hippolyta informed the children. He has confirmed that while Voldemort remains, indisposed, certain of his followers maintain influence in Britain's magical government. Lucius Malfoy practically owns half the ministry, Fletcher muttered. Man slipperier than a greased eel. Claimed he was under the Imperius curse during the war, but everyone knows he was you-know-who's right hand. You-know-who? Diana whispered to Harry. Another name for Voldemort, he explained quietly. Most wizards are too afraid to say his actual name. Hippolyta continued her questioning. And these Death Eaters, they still search for Harry? Fletcher shrugged as much as the binding rope allowed. Some do, I guess. Mostly on the quiet. Officially, everyone thinks he's safe behind Dumbledore's protections. He eyed Harry curiously. How'd you end up here anyway, kid? Last I heard, you were living with Muggle relatives. That's not your concern, Philippus cut in sharply. What of Voldemort himself? Menelip asked. Do people believe he is truly gone? Fletcher hesitated. Officially, yeah. He's dead and gone, greatest wizard of the age defeated by a baby. He jerked his head toward Harry. No offense, kid. But unofficially? Hippolyta pressed. Unofficially, there's rumors. Dark magic being detected in forests in Albania. Livestock found dead, drained of blood. Some say he's out there, less than a spirit but not quite gone. Looking for a way back. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. The man's words matched fragments of nightmares he occasionally still had, vague impressions of a shadowy presence, hungry and patient. And if he returns? What then? Fletcher's face paled. Then we're all in trouble, aren't we? Last time, it was torture and killing and disappearances every day. No one was safe. His eyes darted to Harry again. Except him, apparently. The boy who lived. Manor stepped forward, studying Fletcher intently. You know something else. Something you're afraid to say. The man squirmed under her gaze. Look, it's just rumors, right? The kind of stuff people talk about after too much fire whiskey. Speak, Philippus commanded. Fletcher licked his lips nervously. There's talk about objects. Important objects that you know who hid pieces of himself in. Insurance, like. So he couldn't really die. Harry and Diana exchanged alarmed glances. Like the thing that was in my scar? Harry asked before anyone could stop him. Fletcher's eyes widened. In your bloody hell. So the rumors are true then. What rumors exactly? Hippolyta's voice was dangerously quiet. That you know who made horcruxes. Split his soul into pieces and hid them in objects. Dark magic, darkest there is. Requires murder to make one. Manor turned to Hippolyta, her expression grave. This matches what we found in Harry's scar. A soul fragment. How many of these, horcruxes, might exist? Hippolyta asked Fletcher. The man shook his head. No idea. Making just one is supposed to be nearly impossible. But if the kid had one in his scar, and it wasn't even in an object. He shuddered. Who knows how many the madman created? Hippolyta stood abruptly. Philippus, have our guest escorted to secure quarters. He will remain our guest until I decide his fate. As Fletcher was led away, still bound in the glowing rope, Hippolyta turned to Harry and Diana. You should not have been present for this questioning. But I learned something important, Harry argued. If Voldemort made more of these horcruxes, doesn't that mean he can't be killed until they're all destroyed? Hippolyta's expression softened slightly. You are becoming quite the strategist, Harry. Yes, that appears to be the case. Then we need to find them, Diana declared with characteristic directness. All of them. We will consider our next steps carefully, Hippolyta said. For now, both of you return to your studies. This information requires careful reflection. As they left the chamber, Diana nudged Harry. She's not going to just consider anything. Mother's already planning something. How do you know? Because I know her. Diana grinned. And because I'm going to eavesdrop on the council meeting tonight. Diana. We can't, want to bet. I know all the secret passages in the palace. She grabbed his hand. Come on, I'll show you the best listening spot. Harry hesitated only briefly before following. If the Amazons were planning something regarding Voldemort and the horcruxes, he needed, to know. That night, hidden in a narrow passage behind a decorative screen in the council chamber, Harry and Diana listened as Hippolyta addressed her inner circle. The information from this thief confirms our worst fears, the Queen was saying. Voldemort has taken steps to ensure his immortality through the foulest of magics. The horcruxes, Artemis said. Including the one we removed from Harry. Yes. Which raises the question, how many others exist? Manor spoke up. I have consulted the oracles. The signs suggest 7, the most magically powerful number. With one destroyed, 6 would remain. And we have no way of knowing what they are or where they're hidden, Philippus pointed out. Not necessarily, Epione interjected. When we extracted the fragment from Harry, I preserved certain essences. Magical signatures that might help identify similar objects. Harry unconsciously touched his scar, surprised and slightly disturbed to learn that some essence of the thing that had been inside him had been preserved. Additionally, Hippolyta said, we now know that Voldemort remains in some form in Albania, seeking a path to full resurrection. This gives us an opportunity. To strike while he is weakened, Artemis concluded approvingly. Precisely. For 3 years, we have protected Harry while training him for the conflict we knew would eventually come. But recent events, Dumbledore's visit, this new information, suggest we can no longer remain passive. What do you propose, my queen? Philippus asked. A 3-pronged approach. First, we send scouts to Albania to gather more intelligence on Voldemort's current form and capabilities. Second, we use the magical signatures Epione preserved to develop a means of detecting other horcruxes. And third. She paused. We begin preparing Harry for more advanced combat and magical training. He is still a child, Epione cautioned. A child with a destiny, whether we accept the prophecy or not, Hippolyta countered. Voldemort will never stop hunting him. Dumbledore will never stop trying to control him. We cannot shelter him forever, but we can prepare him to face what comes on his own terms. In the hidden passage, Diana squeezed Harry's hand encouragingly. And what of our guest? Artemis asked. This Fletcher. We will extract what additional information he possesses, then return him to Britain with his memory of Themyscira removed. He may, however, be useful in another capacity first. As bait, Philippus realized. Indeed. I believe it's time we captured someone with more direct knowledge of Voldemort and his horcruxes. A Death Eater, perhaps. The council continued discussing logistics, but Diana tugged at Harry's sleeve, signaling they should leave before being discovered. They crept silently back through the passage until they reached a safe distance from the council chamber. They're going to war, Diana whispered excitedly once they were alone in a quiet courtyard. For you. Harry sat heavily on a stone bench, overwhelmed. I never wanted to bring war to Themyscira. Don't be stupid, Diana said, sitting beside him. The Amazons live for this kind of thing. Mother's probably been bored out of her mind for the last 1,000 years. Despite his anxiety, Harry smiled at her characterization. Still, it's dangerous. If Voldemort really has multiple horcruxes, then we'll find them all and destroy them, Diana stated with absolute confidence. And then you'll be free. Harry looked at his best friend, fierce, loyal, and utterly fearless at just 10 years old, and felt a surge of determination. The Amazons weren't just fighting for him, they were fighting with him, teaching him to fight for himself. You're right, he said finally. If we do nothing, Voldemort eventually comes back at full strength. Better to take the fight to him now. Diana punched his shoulder approvingly. Now you're thinking like an Amazon. Over the following weeks, Themyscira transformed. Always a warrior society, the island now pulsed with purposeful energy as Amazons prepared for engagement with the outside world for the first time in centuries. Harry and Diana's training intensified dramatically. Where before they had learned basic combat and magical control, now they were pushed to their limits daily. Again. Artemis barked as Harry picked himself up from the training ground for the 5th time that morning. Your enemy will not wait for you to catch your breath. He gritted his teeth and resumed his stance, wooden sword at the ready. Across from him, 3 Amazon trainees circled, looking for openings. Harry had progressed from one-on-one sparring to group combat, learning to handle multiple opponents simultaneously. When the first attacker lunged, Harry sidestepped and used her momentum to send her stumbling toward the second. The third came at him from behind, but he'd anticipated this, dropping to one knee and sweeping his sword in a low arc that caught her ankle. 2 down momentarily, he focused on the remaining opponent. She was good, better than him in pure skill, but Harry had something she didn't. As she pressed her attack, forcing him backward, he reached for his magic. The ground beneath her feet suddenly turned slick as ice. She slipped, just for an instant, but it was enough. Harry's wooden sword tapped her ribs, a killing blow in real combat. But he'd focused too much on her. The first trainee had recovered and landed a solid hit on his shoulder from behind. Dead, Artemis announced dispassionately. Never lose awareness of all opponents. Harry nodded, rubbing his bruised shoulder. 3 years ago, such a failure would have devastated him. Now, he simply catalogued the mistake and resolved to correct it next time. Diana, watching from the sidelines after completing her own training session, offered him a water skin when Artemis finally called a break. "You're getting better with the ice trick," she commented as he drank deeply. "Still have to concentrate too hard," Harry replied, wiping his mouth. "In a real fight, I wouldn't have time to focus like that." "You'll get there. Remember when you could barely light a candle with your magic?" She had a point. Harry's magical abilities had developed dramatically during his time on Themyscira. Without a wand, he'd learned to channel magic directly, a more difficult but ultimately more versatile approach than the structured spellcasting taught at schools like Hogwarts. "How was your session with Manor?" he asked, changing the subject. Diana groaned. "Brutal. She had me holding mental shields while running up and down the temple steps. Said a real enemy wouldn't attack when I'm sitting comfortably in meditation." Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of Philippus. "Harry, Diana. The Queen requests your presence. Our scouts have returned from Britain with a guest." The children exchanged excited glances. Another prisoner to question, and likely someone more significant than Fletcher, who had been returned to Britain weeks ago with carefully modified memories. In the secure chamber beneath the palace, they found an impressive array of Amazons surrounding a single bound figure. Unlike the nervous Fletcher, this prisoner radiated cold arrogance despite his circumstances. Tall and aristocratic, with long platinum blonde hair, he glared at his captors with undisguised contempt. "Harry Potter," he drawled when he spotted Harry. "How unexpected. The Dark Lord's enemies have strange allies indeed." "Lucius Malfoy," Harry replied, recognizing the name from Fletcher's information. "Death Eater." "Former Death Eater," Malfoy corrected smoothly. "I was cleared of all charges." "Imperius curse, you understand." "We understand nothing of the sort," Hippolyta cut in. "Our intelligence suggests you were among Voldemort's most devoted followers." Malfoy flinched slightly at the name. "Your intelligence is clearly flawed. I am a respected member of Wizarding Society, a school governor, and personal advisor to the Minister of Magic. My abduction is an act of war." "Fortunately, no one knows you've been abducted," Philippus pointed out. "Your disappearance has been arranged to appear as though you're taking an extended business trip to France." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Malfoy's eyes. "Now," Hippolyta continued, "you will tell us what you know about Voldemort's horcruxes." The effect was immediate. Malfoy's face drained of color, and he actually jerked against his bonds. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice had lost its smooth confidence. "You lie," Manor stated, circling him slowly. "You know the word. You know its meaning. And you know of at least one such object." Harry watched in fascination as the Amazon seer seemed to pull truth from Malfoy's unwilling mind, not by force, but through something more subtle. It wasn't mind-reading as Dumbledore had attempted, it was more like reading the physical signs of deception and knowledge. "He entrusted something to you," Manor continued. "Something precious. Something you were to protect." "This is absurd," Malfoy snapped, but sweat had broken out on his forehead. "A book, perhaps?" Manor suggested, watching his reaction carefully. "Or a cup? A locket?" "At diary," Malfoy's pupils dilated slightly. "A diary," Manor confirmed, nodding to Hippolyta. "The Dark Lord gave this man a diary to protect." Malfoy's aristocratic composure cracked. "How are you doing this? You're not using legilimency." "We use older magics," Hippolyta informed him. "Now, tell us about this diary." For nearly an hour, they questioned him. Gradually, the full story emerged, a diary Voldemort had entrusted to Malfoy years ago, with instructions to keep it safe. After Voldemort's fall, Malfoy had hidden it in his Manor's secret vault. The Dark Lord never explained its significance, Malfoy insisted. Only that it was important to him. And yet you recognized the term horcrux, Philippus pointed out. I may have researched certain aspects of dark magic over the years. For academic purposes only. Harry, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. You're planning to use it, aren't you? The diary. That's why you still have it instead of destroying it after he fell. Malfoy's eyes narrowed as he regarded Harry. Perceptive for a child. Though hardly surprising, given your unique history with the Dark Lord. Answer the question, Hippolyta commanded. The diary has certain properties, Malfoy admitted reluctantly. It can influence the one who writes in it. I had considered using it to further certain political objectives. By having Voldemort possess someone, Harry realized, remembering what the soul fragment had felt like in his own head. That's what it does, isn't it? It possesses people. Malfoy didn't answer directly, but his expression confirmed Harry's guess. Hippolyta had heard enough. You will provide us with detailed instructions on accessing this diary from your manor. Once we have confirmed your information and retrieved the object, we will consider your fate. And if I refuse? Malfoy challenged, though his bravado sounded hollow. Then you remain our guest indefinitely, Philippus replied. Themyscira exists outside the flow of time as your world experiences it. We could keep you here for decades while mere days pass outside. This threat, delivered matter-of-factly, finally broke Malfoy's resistance. He provided detailed instructions for bypassing the wards at Malfoy Manor and accessing his hidden vault. As he was led away to secure quarters, Diana whispered to Harry, Mother will destroy it, right? The diary? I hope so, Harry replied. But first they need to figure out how. The ritual they used on my scar was specifically designed for a living host. This might need something different. Their suspicion proved correct. That evening, a small team of Amazons departed for Britain to retrieve the diary, while others gathered in the Royal Library to research methods of destroying horcruxes. Basilisk venom, Epione read from an ancient text. Fiend fire. These are mentioned as capable of destroying such abominations, but both are incredibly dangerous to obtain or control. What about the gods? Diana suggested. Couldn't they destroy it? Hippolyta considered this. Perhaps. But the gods do not intervene directly in mortal affairs without significant cause. Even for this, they might refuse. Then what? Harry asked, frustration evident in his voice. If we can't destroy it, we will find a way, Hippolyta assured him. This is but the first step, Harry. Now that we know for certain these horcruxes exist, we can develop strategies to locate and eliminate them all. And Voldemort himself? Harry pressed. Fletcher said he's in Albania, trying to find a way back. Our scouts are already en route. Once we know more about his current form and capabilities, we can plan accordingly. Diana, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly straightened. I have an idea about the diary. All eyes turned to her. What if we use the fires of Hestia? They're supposed to purify anything, right? Hippolyta's eyes widened slightly. The sacred flame, it has not been used for such a purpose in millennia, but theoretically, its purifying properties could destroy the corruption within the horcrux. Is it dangerous? Harry asked. All divine tools carry risk, Hippolyta acknowledged. But Diana's suggestion has merit. When the diary is retrieved, we will consult with the temple priestesses. As they left the library, Harry nudged Diana. Nice thinking with the sacred fire. She shrugged, but looked pleased. I pay attention in history lessons sometimes. Only when they talk about weapons or fire, Harry teased. The most interesting parts. She defended, then grew serious. Harry, do you think, when all this is over, when Voldemort's really gone, will you want to go back to the wizarding world? The question caught him off guard. I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. But you might, Diana pressed, an unusual vulnerability in her voice. If there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Harry stopped walking and turned to face her. Diana, this is my home now. You, the Queen, the Amazons, you're my family. Why would I leave? Because it's your world too. The wizarding world. Where your parents came from. Harry considered this. Maybe someday I'll want to visit, to learn more about them. But Themyscira is where I belong now. He smiled at her. Someone has to keep you out of trouble, after all. Diana punched his arm, relief evident in her expression. As if. I'm the one who saves your butt in training every day. Oh really? Who knocked you into the fountain last week? That was a fluke and you know it. Their bickering continued as they headed toward the dining hall, the momentary seriousness forgotten. But Harry's mind lingered on Diana's question. The truth was, he hadn't allowed himself to think beyond the immediate threat of Voldemort. The idea of a future where he could choose his path freely, without prophecy or dark lords, was almost too hopeful to contemplate. The Amazon team returned 3 days later with the diary, a small, unassuming black book that nonetheless radiated malevolence to anyone sensitive to such things. Harry felt it immediately when they brought it into the palace, a cold, familiar sensation that made his scar prickle uncomfortably. It's like what was in my head, he told Hippolyta as they observed the diary from a safe distance. But stronger. The Queen nodded grimly. Epione believes this contains a larger fragment than the one that attached to you. Possibly the first horcrux Voldemort created. Diana, never one for caution, leaned closer to the table where the diary lay. It doesn't look dangerous. Neither do many deadly things, Artemis said, pulling her back. The most dangerous serpents often appear harmless. Preparations for the diary's destruction took another day. The priestesses of Hestia had to prepare the sacred fire, a process that involved elaborate rituals and offerings. By sunset, everything was ready. The ceremony took place in Hestia's temple, a circular building in the center of Themyscira where an eternal flame burned in a marble hearth. The diary was placed on a silver tray beside the flame. The fire will not burn ordinary objects, the head priestess explained to Harry and Diana, who had been allowed to witness the ceremony. Only that which is corrupted, only that which offends the natural order. Hippolyta, dressed in ceremonial armor, addressed the assembled Amazons. We stand against an abomination, a perversion of life and death created by a dark wizard. May Hestia's purifying flame cleanse this corruption from the world. She nodded to the priestess, who lifted the tray containing the diary and held it over the sacred flame. For a moment, nothing happened. The fire continued to burn with its usual golden light, seemingly unable to affect the diary. Then, slowly, the flames changed color, shifting from gold to an intense blue-white that hurt to look at directly. The diary began to smoke. Then, suddenly, it screamed, a high, inhuman sound that made everyone present flinch. Black, ink-like substance oozed from the pages, boiling away in the magical fire. The diary's cover curled and blackened, but didn't burn as ordinary materials would. Instead, it seemed to be fighting the fire, resisting destruction. The screaming intensified, becoming a howl of rage and pain that echoed throughout the temple. Harry clutched his scar, which had begun to burn in sympathy with the horcrux. Diana grabbed his hand, steadying him. It's fighting back, he gasped. The priestess holding the tray began to tremble with the effort of keeping it in the flame. Sweat beaded on her brow, and her arms shook visibly. Hold, Hippolyta commanded. It weakens. Indeed, the diary's resistance seemed to be faltering. The screaming became more desperate, the black substance flowing more freely. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, the diary split down the middle, and a spectral face briefly formed in the black mist above it, contorted in rage, before dissipating entirely. Silence fell in the temple. The sacred flame returned to its normal golden color, and the diary, now a charred, empty husk, lay harmless on the tray. "It is done," the priestess announced, setting the tray down. Harry's scar stopped burning immediately. He approached the remains cautiously, Diana at his side. "Is it really gone?" she asked. Menelip stepped forward, passing her hands over the diary without touching it. "The soul fragment has been destroyed. This is merely an ordinary, damaged book now." Harry released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's 2 down. And 5 to go," Hippolyta finished. "If our intelligence is correct." Later that night, as the Amazons celebrated the successful destruction of the horcrux with a feast, Harry found himself once again drawn to the eastern cliffs where his Themyscira journey had begun. He wasn't entirely surprised when Diana joined him a few minutes later, carrying 2 honey cakes pilfered from the feast. "Thought you might be hungry," she said, handing him one before sitting beside him. "Thanks." He bit into the sweet treat gratefully. They ate in companionable silence, watching the stars reflect on the dark sea below. Finally, Diana spoke. "Mother says the scouts should reach Albania next week." Harry nodded. "I know. Are you scared? About what they might find?" He considered the question honestly. "Not as much as I should be, maybe. 3 years ago, I was terrified of Voldemort, of what was inside me, of what the prophecy meant. But now you're not alone," Diana finished for him. "Exactly." He smiled at her. "It makes all the difference." Diana leaned against his shoulder briefly. "We're going to find all the horcruxes, Harry. And then we're going to find Voldemort himself. And when we do, I'll be ready," Harry said with quiet determination. "Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you." In that moment, sitting on the cliffs of Themyscira with his best friend beside him, Harry felt something he'd rarely experienced before discovering this island: hope. Not just for survival, but for victory. For a future beyond prophecy and dark wizards. A future he would forge for himself, with the strength and wisdom of the Amazons behind him. Chapter 3, Defying Destiny. "Happy birthday, Harry." Diana's voice yanked Harry out of sleep as she burst into his chamber, already dressed in her training gear despite the early hour. Sunlight was just beginning to stream through his windows, painting the marble floors with golden light. Harry groaned and pulled his pillow over his head. "It's not even sunrise." "Close enough," Diana insisted, yanking the covers off him. "Come on, you're 11 today. In the outside world, you'd be getting your Hogwarts letter." Harry sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Lucky me, I get you instead." "Much better deal." Diana grinned and tossed a small package onto his bed. "Here. Open it before training." Curiosity pushed the last traces of sleep from Harry's mind. He unwrapped the package carefully to find a leather bracelet inside, intricately braided with strands of different colors. "I made it myself," Diana said, a hint of uncertainty in her normally confident voice. "The red is for courage, the blue for wisdom, and the gold for strength. The pattern is an old Amazon protection weave." Harry slipped it onto his wrist, genuinely touched. "It's perfect. Thank you. It's not just decorative," she added. "I had Epione enchant it. If you're ever in real danger, it'll heat up to warn you." Harry raised an eyebrow. "When am I not in danger around you?" Diana punched his shoulder. "You know what I mean. Real danger. Dark wizard danger." The mention of dark wizards sobered them both. The past 3 years had been filled with increasingly intensive training and a growing shadow of conflict. The Amazon scouts who had ventured to Albania had confirmed their worst fears: Voldemort, though still disembodied, was gathering strength. Worse, his remaining followers seemed to be mobilizing, as if preparing for his return. "Come on," Diana said, breaking the momentary tension. "Mother's waiting in the training arena. Special birthday session, just the 3 of us." Harry's eyebrows shot up. Training directly with Queen Hippolyta was rare and typically reserved for the most advanced Amazon warriors. "She's going to train with us personally," she said. "It's time." Diana's eyes gleamed with excitement. "So hurry up." 15 minutes later, Harry jogged alongside Diana into the main training arena, where Queen Hippolyta waited. Unlike her usual ceremonial attire, she wore practical fighting leathers and held 2 training swords. "Harry," she greeted him with a nod. "Diana has informed you of today's special training?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Harry replied, trying to hide his nervousness. Training with the Queen herself was both an honor and slightly terrifying. "Good." Hippolyta tossed one of the training swords to him, which he caught reflexively. "Today, we assess how far you've come in 6 years." Without further warning, she attacked. The wooden sword whistled through the air toward his head with blinding speed. Harry barely managed to bring his own sword up to block, the impact jarring his entire arm. Hippolyta didn't pause, following with a series of strikes that drove Harry backward across the arena. He defended desperately, falling into the patterns drilled into him by years of Amazon training. Block, parry, sidestep, counter. Each move flowed into the next as Harry's body responded almost without conscious thought. He'd become a competent fighter over the years, holding his own against most younger Amazons, but Hippolyta was in an entirely different league. The Queen pressed her advantage, never allowing Harry to regain his balance. Just when he thought he couldn't hold out any longer, she swept his legs from under him. Harry hit the ground hard, the tip of Hippolyta's wooden sword at his throat before he could blink. "Your physical combat skills remain your weakest area," she observed, though not unkindly. "Against a trained warrior, you rely too much on defense." Harry nodded, accepting the criticism. "I know my limitations. Knowing is good. Overcoming is better." Hippolyta withdrew her sword, allowing him to stand. "Now, show me your strengths." She gestured to Diana, who stepped forward with a blindfold. Harry understood immediately, this was a test of his magical combat abilities. As Diana tied the blindfold around his eyes, he reached out with his other senses, feeling the air, listening for movement. 6 years of training with the Amazons had taught him to fight without sight when necessary. But more importantly, they had taught him to use his magic in ways no British wizard would expect. The moment the blindfold was secured, Harry extended his magical awareness outward. Unlike the structured spellcasting taught at wizarding schools, Amazon magical training emphasized direct manipulation of energy through will and intent. He sensed Hippolyta circling him, felt the displacement of air as she moved. She was testing his awareness now, not just his fighting skill. The attack came from behind, silent and swift. Without seeing it, Harry twisted away, simultaneously calling a shield of crackling energy that materialized just in time to deflect Hippolyta's sword. The Queen didn't hesitate, changing tactics immediately. Harry felt multiple objects hurtling toward him, training projectiles launched by Diana from the sidelines. He couldn't block them all with his shield. So he didn't try. Instead, Harry reached for the air itself, creating a swirling vortex around himself that caught the projectiles and redirected them away. It was a technique he'd been practicing for months, one that combined Amazon elemental teachings with his innate magical abilities. "Good," Hippolyta's voice came from his left now. "But an enemy won't give you time to concentrate." She was right. The vortex required too much of his attention. Harry let it dissipate, switching to a more direct approach. He stomped his foot, sending a pulse of magic through the ground that momentarily disrupted Hippolyta's footing, a trick he'd learned from Diana. Taking advantage of her brief imbalance, Harry went on the offensive for the first time. He couldn't see her, but he could sense where she was. He launched a series of magical pushes, invisible bursts of force that could knock an opponent back without causing serious injury. Hippolyta deflected most, but one caught her shoulder, forcing her to take a step back. Harry pressed his advantage, combining physical movement with magical attacks in the seamless blend the Amazons had taught him. For nearly a minute, he managed to keep the queen on the defensive, a remarkable achievement against such a seasoned warrior. Then, inevitably, she found an opening. A sweep of her leg combined with a counter-push of her own magic sent Harry tumbling to the ground again. He yanked off the blindfold to see Hippolyta standing over him, a rare smile on her face. "Much better," she said, offering her hand to help him up. "Your magical combat has improved dramatically. The integration of physical and magical techniques is progressing well." Harry accepted her hand, breathing hard from the exertion. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Now," Hippolyta said, turning to include Diana in the conversation, "for the final test of the day. Both of you, against me." Diana's face lit up with excitement. She'd been watching impatiently from the sidelines, and now practically bounced forward to stand beside Harry. "Ready?" she whispered to him. Harry nodded, raising his training sword again. Working with Diana in combat had become second nature over the years. They had developed a fighting rhythm that compensated for each other's weaknesses, her superior strength and speed complementing his magical abilities. "Begin," Hippolyta commanded. They attacked together, Diana charging directly while Harry circled to the flank. It was their standard opening, one that forced opponents to divide their attention. Hippolyta, of course, had trained them both and knew their tactics. She met Diana's frontal assault with perfect timing while simultaneously keeping Harry in her peripheral vision. But they had anticipated this. Diana's attack was a feint, she pulled back at the last second, leaving Hippolyta slightly overextended. In that fraction of a second, Harry used magic to slick the ground beneath the queen's feet. Hippolyta, however, wasn't Amazon Queen for nothing. She jumped, avoiding the magical trap, and turned Harry's tactic against them by landing between the two children, temporarily separating them. What followed was the most intense sparring session Harry had ever experienced. He and Diana attacked in coordinated patterns they'd practiced countless times, while Hippolyta countered with the skill of 3,000 years of warfare. Harry used every magical technique he'd mastered, creating brief illusions to distract, enhancing his speed for short bursts, even calling a gust of wind to blow sand toward Hippolyta's eyes. Diana, for her part, fought with the exceptional abilities granted by her divine heritage, moving faster and hitting harder than any 11-year-old should be capable of. For nearly 10 minutes, they pressed the attack, working in perfect tandem. Gradually, they managed to back Hippolyta toward the edge of the arena. "Now!" Diana shouted, recognizing their opportunity. Harry dropped his sword and clapped his hands together, focusing all his magical energy into a single, powerful push directed at the ground beneath Hippolyta's feet. The stone cracked with the force of it, momentarily destroying her balance. In that instant, Diana struck, not with her sword, but with a flying tackle that caught even her mother by surprise. They tumbled together, rolling across the arena floor until coming to a stop with Diana straddling Hippolyta, her wooden sword pointed at her mother's heart. "Yield?" Diana asked, grinning triumphantly. Hippolyta's expression remained neutral for a moment before breaking into a smile. "I yield," she conceded, accepting Diana's hand to help her up. "Well fought, both of you." Harry could hardly believe it. They'd actually managed to defeat Queen Hippolyta, even if she might have been holding back somewhat for training purposes. "Your coordination has become exceptional," Hippolyta observed as she brushed dust from her training clothes. Few opponents could withstand such synchronized attacks, especially when they combined conventional and magical techniques. "We've practiced a lot," Diana said proudly, throwing an arm around Harry's shoulders. "Indeed." Hippolyta's expression turned more serious. "Which is fortunate, because the time for practice alone is ending." Harry's elation faded. "What do you mean?" "Walk with me," Hippolyta said, leading them from the arena toward the cliffside path that overlooked the sea. When they reached a private overlook, she stopped and faced them directly. "Harry, when you came to us 6 years ago, you were a child in need of protection. Now, at 11, you have grown into a young warrior with considerable skill. Diana, you too have progressed far beyond most Amazons your age." The children exchanged glances, sensing something momentous in the Queen's words. Last night, our scouts returned from Britain with troubling news, Hippolyta continued. Voldemort's followers grow bolder. They move in the open now, gathering dark artifacts, recruiting from the shadows. Meanwhile, Dumbledore and his order prepare for conflict as well. They're both looking for me, aren't they? Harry asked quietly. Yes. Dumbledore, because the time when you would normally begin your magical education at Hogwarts has arrived. Voldemort's followers, because they sense their master stirring and seek to eliminate his prophesied enemy before he returns fully. Let them come, Diana said fiercely. Themyscira can repel any invasion. Perhaps, Hippolyta acknowledged. But that brings us to the decision before us. We can remain on Themyscira, safe behind our divine barriers, and allow events in the outside world to unfold without our intervention. Or we can take the fight to them, Harry finished, understanding instantly. Hippolyta nodded. The Amazon Council has debated this extensively. For 3,000 years, we have remained separate from the world of men, intervening only in rare circumstances of great need. And now is one of those times? Diana asked eagerly. I believe it is. Hippolyta's gaze fixed on Harry. But the decision is not mine alone. Harry, this concerns your destiny most directly. What path would you choose? Harry looked out at the sea, the same waters that had welcomed him when he accidentally apparated to Themyscira 6 years ago. This island had become his home, the Amazons his family. Part of him wanted nothing more than to stay here forever, protected and loved. But another part, the part that had absorbed Amazon teachings about courage and responsibility, knew he couldn't hide forever. If Voldemort returns to full power, he won't stop until he finds me, Harry said slowly. And he'll hurt anyone who stands in his way. I can't let that happen. He turned back to face Hippolyta and Diana. I think we need to go to Britain. Find the remaining horcruxes. Deal with Voldemort before he becomes too powerful. Diana grinned, clearly pleased with his answer. Hippolyta's expression remained grave, but she nodded in approval. A warrior's choice, she said. Very well. Preparations are already underway. In 3 days, a delegation of Amazons will depart for Britain, led by myself. You and Diana will accompany us. Me too? Diana asked, surprise momentarily overriding her excitement. You have proven yourself in training, daughter, Hippolyta replied. And your connection with Harry may prove vital in the days ahead. Harry felt a surge of relief. The idea of facing Britain's wizarding world without Diana at his side had been unthinkable. There is one more thing, Hippolyta added. The horcrux we retrieved from Malfoy's Manor was only the beginning. Our investigations suggest the locations of 2 more, but others remain hidden. And Voldemort himself, in his weakened state, continues to elude our scouts in Albania. So we'll be hunting, Harry said. Yes. But we must also be prepared for confrontation with Dumbledore and his order. They will not simply allow us to operate freely in their territory, especially once they realize we have you with us. Let them try to stop us, Diana said confidently. Do not underestimate them, daughter, Hippolyta cautioned. British wizards may lack our warrior training, but they possess formidable magical abilities and knowledge of their own lands that we do not. She turned back to Harry. Which brings me to your birthday gift. From a small pouch at her belt, Hippolyta withdrew something that made Harry's breath catch, a wand. Not the typical wooden wands used by British wizards, but one crafted from a material that seemed to shimmer between silver and gold in the sunlight. This was crafted by our artisans using wood from Themyscira's sacred grove and a core of freely given Amazon hair, including strands from both Diana and myself, Hippolyta explained, holding it out to him. It will allow you to channel your magic in the focused way British wizards do, while still maintaining the connection to Amazon techniques you have mastered. Harry accepted the wand with reverence, feeling an immediate warmth spread up his arm as his fingers closed around it. Unlike the magical tools he'd trained with on Themyscira, which always felt like external instruments, this wand felt like an extension of himself, a bridge between his Amazon training and his inherent wizarding heritage. "Thank you," he said, words failing to convey his gratitude adequately. "You may need to fight in their style as well as ours in the days ahead," Hippolyta said. "Artemis will begin teaching you basic wizarding spells today. The movements and incantations differ from our methods, but the underlying principles remain the same." Diana eyed the wand with interest. "Do I get one too?" Hippolyta smiled slightly. "You, daughter, are Amazon royalty with the blood of Zeus in your veins. Your powers manifest differently. But yes, we have crafted weapons suitable for both of you to use in the outside world." She gestured back toward the palace. "They await you in the armory, along with the battle attire you will wear when we depart." Diana could barely contain her excitement. "Real weapons? Not training ones?" "You have earned them," Hippolyta confirmed. "Though I expect you both to demonstrate the wisdom to use them properly." As they walked back toward the palace, Harry felt the weight of the wand in his hand, and the weight of the decision they'd made. After 6 years of safety and preparation on Themyscira, they were venturing into the world that had both birthed and threatened him. "Nervous?" Diana asked quietly, noticing his pensive expression. "A bit," Harry admitted. "Britain's wizarding world, it feels like another life. Like something I read about rather than lived." "Well, I'm excited," she declared. "Finally, a real adventure." Harry couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. "Just remember, it's not a game, Diana. Voldemort's followers are dangerous. And so is Dumbledore, in his own way." "I know that," she said, her expression turning more serious. "But we've been training for this our whole lives. Well, your whole life with us, anyway. We're ready." Harry hoped she was right. The wand in his hand felt like a promise, and a responsibility. Whatever lay ahead in Britain, he wouldn't face it as the scared, helpless boy who had accidentally apparated to Themyscira 6 years ago. He would face it as an Amazon-trained warrior, with the skills, knowledge, and family he'd gained on the island. And he would face it on his own terms, not according to anyone else's prophecy or plans. The Amazon's preparation for war was a sight to behold. For the next 3 days, Themyscira hummed with purposeful activity as warriors readied weapons, armor, and magical artifacts that hadn't been used in centuries. Harry's own preparations were equally intensive. Mornings were spent with Artemis, learning to channel his magic through his new wand in the structured way of British wizards. "The incantation focuses your intent," she explained as Harry practiced the disarming spell. "But remember, the words themselves are not the source of the magic. You are." Harry nodded, concentrating on the training dummy positioned across the room. "Expelliarmus," he called, moving his wand in the precise pattern Artemis had demonstrated. A jet of scarlet light shot from the wand, striking the dummy and sending the practice sword it held flying across the room. "Good," Artemis approved. "Your wand makes the structured magic easier, but don't become dependent on it. A true warrior can fight with any weapon, or none." Afternoons were dedicated to strategy sessions with Hippolyta and her commanders. Maps of magical Britain were spread across the war table as they discussed potential locations of horcruxes, known Death Eater strongholds, and the likely response from Dumbledore once their presence was detected. "We believe one horcrux may be hidden at Hogwarts itself," Menelip explained, pointing to the school's location on the map. "The signs suggest an object of significance to the founders, possibly related to Rowena Ravenclaw. Another appears to be in the possession of an old wizarding family named Black," Philippus added. "Though accessing their ancestral home will be challenging due to protective enchantments." Harry studied the maps intently, absorbing every detail. Unlike the Amazons, he had actually lived in this world, however briefly. "What about Dumbledore?" he asked. "He'll know something's happening the moment we arrive in Britain." "We are counting on it," Hippolyta replied. "In fact, we intend to announce our arrival rather than attempt stealth. Diana, who had been practicing with her new weapons nearby, looked up in surprise. "We're just going to tell them we're coming." "Diplomatic protocol," Hippolyta explained. "We will inform the British Ministry of Magic that an Amazon delegation wishes to meet regarding matters of mutual concern. This gives us legitimate entry while we pursue our true objectives." "And if they refuse?" Harry asked. "They won't," Hippolyta said with quiet confidence. "The magical nations remember the Amazons, even if they believe us mostly myth now. None would risk offending us outright." Evenings were devoted to final training with their new equipment. Harry's battle attire combined elements of traditional Amazon armor with modifications suitable for a young wizard warrior. Lightweight leather reinforced with magical protections covered his chest and forearms, while allowing freedom of movement for both physical combat and spellcasting. At his waist hung a short sword crafted specifically for his height and fighting style. Diana's outfit was similar but incorporated her royal status with subtle gold embroidery and the symbol of Themyscira prominently displayed. Her primary weapons were twin short swords that seemed to gleam with inner light when she wielded them. Blessed by Hephaestus himself, she told Harry proudly during a break in their sparring. "Mother says they can cut through nearly anything." On the eve of their departure, Harry found himself drawn once again to the eastern cliffs. The full moon illuminated the sea below, creating a silver path across the water that seemed to lead straight to the horizon, and beyond that, to Britain. "Thought I'd find you here," came Diana's voice as she joined him at the cliff edge. "Nervous again?" "Thinking," Harry corrected, though she wasn't entirely wrong. "About what happens after?" "After we destroy the horcruxes and defeat Voldemort, you mean?" "Yeah." Harry picked up a small stone and tossed it into the sea far below. "These past 6 years, everything has been focused on preparing for this. But what comes next? Do we just go back to Themyscira and continue as before?" Diana bumped her shoulder against his. "Would that be so bad?" "No, not at all. It's just..." He struggled to find the words. "I feel like I need to understand where I came from too. My parents, the wizarding world they lived in." "You want to stay in Britain afterward," Diana said, not quite a question. "Not permanently," Harry clarified quickly. "Themyscira is my home now. But maybe, visit. Learn about that part of me too." Diana nodded slowly. "I understand. And honestly, I wouldn't mind exploring the outside world a bit myself. Mother's always so protective, this is the first time she's letting me leave the island." "Because she knows you'd just sneak onto the boat if she didn't," Harry teased. "Exactly." Diana laughed. "She's finally being practical." They fell silent for a moment, watching the moonlight on the water. "Whatever happens," Diana finally said, "we face it together. That's a promise." Harry glanced at the leather bracelet she'd given him, still wrapped around his wrist. "Together," he agreed. The Amazon expedition departed at dawn. 20 of Themyscira's finest warriors, led by Queen Hippolyta herself, boarded 3 enchanted vessels that would carry them swiftly and invisibly to the shores of Britain. Diana and Harry stood at the bow of the lead ship, watching Themyscira grow smaller behind them. "How long until we reach Britain?" Harry asked Philippus, who was navigating. "Our ships travel faster than mortal vessels," the warrior replied. "We will reach the southern coast by nightfall. From there, we travel overland to our first destination." That destination, Harry knew from their planning sessions, was a manor house in Wiltshire, home to the Malfoy family. Although they had already retrieved one horcrux from Malfoy's possession, intelligence suggested he might have knowledge of others. More importantly, the Malfoy estate was known to be a gathering place for Death Eaters. Will Lucius Malfoy remember being questioned on Themyscira? Harry asked Hippolyta as they stood watching the horizon. "No," the Queen replied. "His memories of our island were removed before his return. He knows only that the diary entrusted to him has somehow vanished from his vault. So he'll be surprised to see us," Harry said with grim satisfaction. The journey passed quickly. Diana spent much of it practicing with her new swords, while Harry alternated between wand practice and studying the maps and information they had gathered about magical Britain. As promised, they reached the British coast as the sun was setting. The ships anchored in a secluded cove, concealed from mortal eyes by Amazon magic. "We make camp here tonight," Hippolyta announced. "Tomorrow, we begin our mission in earnest." Tents were erected, though tents hardly described the elaborate pavilions that were magically expanded inside to accommodate the Amazon warriors in comfort. Harry and Diana shared one near the center of the camp, surrounded by protective enchantments. "It feels different," Diana commented as they prepared for sleep. "The air, the land, everything. This is my first time back since I was 5, Harry replied, understanding exactly what she meant. After years on Themyscira, the very atmosphere of Britain felt heavier somehow, less vibrant. Sleep came fitfully for Harry. Fragments of dreams disturbed him, flashes of a pale, snake-like face and high, cold laughter. He woke before dawn, his scar prickling uncomfortably. Diana was already awake, sharpening her swords by the light of a small magical lamp. She looked up as he sat up. "Bad dreams?" "He knows," Harry said simply. "Voldemort. He knows something's happening." Diana set aside her weapons immediately. "Should we tell Mother?" "Yes. But it might actually work in our favor. If he's focused on me, he might not realize we're hunting his horcruxes until it's too late." Hippolyta took the news with characteristic calm when they brought it to her. "The connection between you remains, then, even without the soul fragment." "Interesting. We will adjust our plans accordingly." By mid-morning, the Amazons were ready to move. They had changed from their traditional island attire into clothing that would attract less attention in the British countryside, though Harry noted that even their inconspicuous clothing maintained elements of warrior functionality. "Our first task is intelligence gathering," Hippolyta briefed them as they prepared to depart. "We need to confirm Malfoy Manor's defenses before approaching. Artemis will lead a scouting team, while the rest of us establish a more permanent base of operations nearby." "What about Dumbledore?" Harry asked. "Won't he detect our arrival?" "A formal message was sent to the Ministry of Magic last night, announcing an Amazon diplomatic delegation," Philippus explained. "By now, Dumbledore will certainly be aware of our presence, though not necessarily our exact location or purpose." "So he'll be looking for us," Diana concluded. "Let him look," Hippolyta said confidently. "We will meet on our terms, not his." The day passed in careful reconnaissance. The Amazons moved with practiced efficiency, establishing a hidden camp in woodland miles from any mortal settlement while scouting teams gathered information on Malfoy Manor and other potential targets. By evening, Artemis returned with detailed reports on the Manor's defenses. "Impressive for mortal magic," she conceded, "but nothing we cannot overcome. More concerning is the activity within. Multiple dark wizards have arrived throughout the day. They're gathering," Harry realized. "Planning something." "Yes," Artemis agreed. "And based on their security arrangements, they expect significant opposition." Hippolyta studied the rough map Artemis had drawn. "Then we strike tomorrow night, before their plans can mature. Harry, you and Diana will accompany the main assault team. Your knowledge of wizarding tactics may prove valuable." Diana couldn't contain her excitement, but Harry felt a curious mix of anticipation and dread. Tomorrow, he would face the followers of the wizard who had murdered his parents and tried to kill him. The same wizard whose soul fragment had nestled in his scar for years. As he prepared his equipment that night, checking his wand and adjusting his armor, Harry felt Diana watching him. "What?" he asked. "You're quiet," she observed. "Thinking about tomorrow?" "Yes." He tested the edge of his short sword before returning it to its sheath. "It just feels real now. We're really doing this." Diana moved to sit beside him. "Having second thoughts?" "No," Harry said firmly. "It needs to be done. I just hope. He hesitated. What? I hope I'm ready. Not just for the fighting, but for whatever else happens. Confronting Dumbledore. Maybe even Voldemort himself eventually. Diana bumped his shoulder with hers. You are ready. We trained for this, remember? And besides, you've got me watching your back. Harry managed a smile. Poor Death Eaters. They have no idea what's coming. Exactly, Diana grinned. Now get some sleep. You'll need your strength to keep up with me tomorrow. The raid on Malfoy Manor began precisely at midnight. Amazon scouts had identified a weakness in the property's magical defenses, a section of the boundary where the protective enchantments were thinnest, likely due to recent modifications. Hippolyta led the assault personally, with Harry and Diana positioned within the second wave. They watched from the tree line as the first team of Amazons breached the outer wards with a combination of ancient countermagic and brute force. Alarms wailed immediately, magical lights flaring across the grounds. Dark-robed figures emerged from the manor, wands raised. Death Eaters, Harry whispered to Diana, recognizing the distinctive masks they wore. The Amazons engaged them without hesitation. What followed was unlike any magical battle Harry had read about in the histories of Wizarding Britain. Where Death Eaters relied on curses and jinxes cast from a distance, the Amazons closed to melee range with supernatural speed, combining magical attacks with physical combat in ways the Dark Wizards clearly hadn't anticipated. Now, Philippus commanded as the initial defenders were overwhelmed. Harry and Diana moved forward with the second wave, crossing the now breached boundary onto Malfoy property. Harry had his wand ready, his senses alert for threats as they approached the imposing manor house. A jet of green light, the killing curse, Harry recognized from his studies, shot toward them from an upper window. Diana reacted instantly, deflecting it with one of her enchanted swords. The spell ricocheted into the night sky, exploding against a protective barrier the Amazons had established above. Inside, Philippus directed, leading them toward a side entrance while the main battle continued on the front lawn. They encountered resistance immediately, two masked Death Eaters guarding the doorway. Harry's training took over. Expelliarmus, he shouted, the disarming charm catching the first Death Eater by surprise. As the man's wand flew from his grasp, Diana closed the distance in a blur of movement, her sword hilt striking his temple and dropping him unconscious. The second wizard managed to cast a shield charm, blocking Harry's follow-up stunning spell. But he wasn't prepared for Philippus, who simply moved through the magical shield as if it weren't there, a demonstration of the Amazon's partial immunity to certain types of wizarding magic. With both guards neutralized, they entered the manor. The interior was opulent, all marble floors and expensive furnishings. Harry felt a strange disconnect, remembering that this was the home of the man who had possessed one of Voldemort's horcruxes, the diary they had destroyed years ago. The gathering would be in the main hall, Harry said, recalling the intelligence they'd gathered. This way. They moved silently through corridors adorned with portraits of pale-haired ancestors who watched them with painted alarm. Harry could hear the sounds of battle both outside and somewhere deeper in the house. When they reached the entrance to the main hall, they paused to assess the situation. Through the partially open doors, Harry could see several Death Eaters engaged with Amazon warriors who had entered from another direction. In the center of the room, standing on a raised platform, was Lucius Malfoy himself. And beside him, floating in a swirling mass of black smoke, was something that made Harry's scar burn fiercely, a wraith-like figure with glowing red eyes. Voldemort, Harry whispered, instinctively strengthening his mental shields. Though still incorporeal, the Dark Lord had clearly progressed beyond the weakened state reported by their scouts in Albania. Diana gripped her swords tighter. That's him. He doesn't even have a body. He's trying to get one, Harry realized, observing the complex ritual array set up on the platform. That's why they gathered here. They're trying to resurrect him. Philippus assessed the situation quickly. We must disrupt the ritual. Diana, target the artifacts on the platform. Harry, cover her approach. I will engage the Death Eaters directly. Without waiting for acknowledgement, the Amazon warrior burst through the doors, her sword already in motion as she intercepted a curse aimed at one of her sisters. Diana glanced at Harry. Ready? He nodded, raising his wand. Go. They entered the fray together. Harry immediately cast a series of shield charms to protect Diana's advance, followed by stunning spells that forced the nearest Death Eaters to defend rather than attack. Diana moved with the supernatural speed she'd inherited from Zeus, crossing the room in seconds. Death Eaters tried to target her, but she was simply too fast, weaving between curses and hexes as if they were moving in slow motion. When she reached the platform, her enchanted swords made short work of the ritual artifacts, cauldron, silver dagger, and what looked disturbingly like bones wrapped in cloth. With each object destroyed, the smoky form of Voldemort seemed to waver and thin. No. The Wraith's voice was high and cold, exactly as Harry remembered from his nightmares. Red eyes fixed on Diana as she continued her destruction. Kill her. Lucius Malfoy raised his wand, but Harry was faster. Stupefy. The stunning spell caught Malfoy in the chest, sending him crashing into the ritual array and further disrupting whatever dark magic they had been attempting. The wraith-like Voldemort turned toward Harry, recognition and hatred blazing in those crimson eyes. Potter, he hissed. You have interfered for the last time. Harry felt a pressure against his mental shields, Voldemort attempting to invade his mind directly. Thanks to years of training with Manor, he repelled the attack easily. Not what you expected, am I? Harry called, maintaining his shield charms as he advanced toward the platform. I'm not the helpless baby you tried to kill anymore. The wraith seemed to expand with rage. You are nothing. A lucky infant who survived through his mother's sacrifice, not his own power. Maybe then, Harry acknowledged, continuing his approach. But now? Now I've had 6 years of Amazon training. And I know about your horcruxes. That hit home. The wraith actually recoiled, its smoky form condensing in what Harry interpreted as shock. Impossible, Voldemort hissed. The diary's already gone, Harry pressed his advantage. Destroyed in Hestia's sacred flame. Just like the fragment you left in my scar. Fury and fear battled in those inhuman eyes. Then, with a shriek of rage, the wraith abandoned its attempt at resurrection and fled, streaming through a high window like black smoke. The remaining Death Eaters, seeing their master retreat and half their number already fallen to Amazon warriors, began to disapparate. The distinctive cracking sounds filled the hall as they vanished one by one. Harry reached the platform where Diana stood amidst the destroyed ritual components. You okay? She nodded, looking slightly disappointed. He ran away. He's not at full strength yet, Harry explained. That's good. It means we still have time to find and destroy the remaining horcruxes before he can resurrect properly. Philippus joined them, her armor spattered with blood but her expression calm. The Queen will want to know what happened here. And we should search the manor while we control it. Malfoy may have information about the other horcruxes. They regrouped with the other Amazons, who had successfully subdued the remaining Death Eaters. Hippolyta arrived moments later, her expression darkening as Harry reported Voldemort's appearance and escape. So he was further along in his resurrection attempts than we believed, she said grimly. This confirms the urgency of our mission. Artemis, secure the prisoners. Manor, examine the ritual components, learn what you can about the magic they were attempting. Efficient as always, the Amazon secured the manor within minutes. Death Eaters who hadn't escaped were bound with enchanted rope, while others searched the building for intelligence. In Lucius Malfoy's private study, they found something unexpected, a letter from Hogwarts, bearing that day's date. The Amazon delegation has been granted an audience at the Ministry tomorrow, Hippolyta read. Dumbledore will attend as Chief Warlock. Source confirms Harry Potter is with them. It seems we weren't the only ones gathering intelligence. So Dumbledore knows we're here, Harry said. And that I'm with you. As we expected, Hippolyta replied. Though this raid may change his assessment of our intentions. Diana, exploring the bookshelves, suddenly called out. Mother! Look at this. She had discovered a hidden compartment containing a small black book filled with handwritten notes. As Hippolyta examined it, her expression grew increasingly grave. Records of Death Eater activities, she explained. And more importantly, notes about objects of value to Voldemort. Including the location of what appears to be another horcrux, hidden within the Department of Mysteries at the Ministry itself. The Ministry? Harry's eyebrows rose. That's where we're supposed to meet Dumbledore tomorrow. Indeed. A smile that could only be described as predatory crossed Hippolyta's face. How convenient. Dawn found the Amazons returned to their hidden camp, planning their next move. The raid on Malfoy Manor had yielded valuable intelligence but also accelerated their timeline. News of the attack would spread quickly through Wizarding Britain, and both Dumbledore and the remaining Death Eaters would be on high alert. The diplomatic meeting at the Ministry provides perfect cover, Hippolyta explained as they gathered around a magical model of the Ministry building, constructed based on intelligence from their captives. I will lead the official delegation, keeping attention focused on our negotiations, while a second team infiltrates the Department of Mysteries. I want to be on the infiltration team, Harry said immediately. Hippolyta nodded. You will be. Your magical signature may help locate the horcrux, given your previous connection. Diana will accompany you, along with Artemis and 3 others. Diana looked thrilled at being assigned to the more dangerous mission rather than the diplomatic one. What about Dumbledore? Philippus asked. He will certainly seek a private audience with Harry. I'm counting on it, Hippolyta replied. Such a request will be granted, with appropriate Amazon supervision, of course. That meeting will serve as additional distraction while the infiltration team operates. As they finalized details, Harry felt a mix of emotions. Tomorrow, he would face Albus Dumbledore for the first time since their brief meeting on Themyscira 3 years ago. The wizard who had placed him with the Dursleys, who had intended to shape his life according to prophecy. But unlike that previous meeting, tomorrow Harry wouldn't be a child seeking permission to remain on Themyscira. He would be an Amazon-trained warrior actively working against Dumbledore's plans. That night, as they prepared their equipment for the Ministry mission, Diana noticed Harry's pensive mood. Thinking about Dumbledore again, she asked, testing the edge of her sword for the 10th time. Yes, Harry admitted. I keep trying to decide what to say to him. What he might say to me. Just remember that you don't owe him anything, Diana said firmly. Not explanations, not cooperation, nothing. Harry nodded, appreciating her perspective but knowing it wasn't quite that simple. Dumbledore wasn't just some adversary to be defeated or outsmarted. He represented a path Harry's life might have taken, the wizarding world that had been his birthright. I know, he said finally. But I think I need this conversation, in a way. To understand that part of my past before we move forward. Diana studied him for a moment, then nodded. Just don't let him get in your head. Literally or figuratively. Harry smiled at that. Don't worry. My mental shields are solid. They'd better be, she replied, only half joking. Or Mother will make us do those awful meditation exercises for another 6 months when we get home. The reminder of home, Themyscira waiting for them after this mission, settled something in Harry's mind. Whatever happened tomorrow, whatever revelations or confrontations occurred, he had a place where he truly belonged. That certainty would be his armor against whatever Dumbledore might say. The Amazon diplomatic delegation arrived at the Ministry of Magic precisely at the appointed hour. Led by Queen Hippolyta in formal royal attire, they made an impressive entrance into the atrium, 12 warrior women whose bearing and subtle armor made it clear they were not ordinary diplomats. Harry was not among them. As planned, he and the infiltration team had entered separately, using information extracted from the captured Death Eaters to access a service entrance. Now they waited in a concealed position, monitoring the diplomatic team's progress via a magical communication device similar to a two-way mirror. "The minister is greeting them," Artemis reported, watching the small mirror. "Fudge looks nervous. Dumbledore has just arrived, he's scanning the delegation, obviously looking for you." Harry nodded. The absence of "the boy who lived" from the official delegation would certainly be noticed immediately. "How long until we move?" Diana asked, fidgeting with barely contained energy. "Wait for the signal," Artemis reminded her. "Once the delegation is escorted to the conference room, their guards will be focused there, leaving the lower levels less protected." The wait seemed interminable, but finally, the mirror showed the diplomatic team being led away from the atrium toward the upper levels of the ministry. "Now," Artemis commanded. The infiltration team moved swiftly, using service corridors identified in their intelligence briefings. Harry felt the weight of his mission pressing on him as they descended toward the Department of Mysteries. According to their information, the horcrux was hidden somewhere in the Hall of Prophecy, ironically, the same place that housed the prophecy connecting Harry and Voldemort. They encountered minimal resistance initially. A pair of security wizards were quickly subdued with stunning spells before they could raise an alarm. An enchanted doorway that required magical authorization was bypassed using a counterspell Artemis had prepared specifically for this purpose. "This is too easy," Diana whispered as they reached the entrance to the Department of Mysteries itself. "Agreed," Artemis replied grimly. "Be alert. The true defenses likely lie ahead." The department proved to be a labyrinth of strange rooms, one containing a veiled archway that seemed to whisper, another filled with time-related artifacts, a third containing what appeared to be floating brains in tanks. Harry felt disoriented until they found a directory of sorts near what seemed to be a central chamber. "The Hall of Prophecy," Harry identified, pointing to a marking on the directory. "Through there." As they approached the indicated doorway, Harry felt a strange sensation, a tugging, almost, as if something beyond was calling to him. The leather bracelet Diana had given him for his birthday began to warm against his wrist. "It's in there," he said quietly. "I can feel it. But something else too." Artemis signaled for caution as they entered the Hall of Prophecy, an enormous room filled with towering shelves, each holding countless small glass orbs that glowed with faint blue light. "The prophecies," Diana breathed, looking around in awe. "Focus," Artemis reminded her. "We seek a specific object, not these recordings." Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the sensation he'd felt. It seemed to pull him in two different directions, one toward a specific section of shelving, the other deeper into the hall. "This way first," he decided, leading them toward the closer feeling. They moved silently between the towering shelves until Harry stopped before a specific section. There, on a shelf at eye level, sat a glass orb that glowed slightly more intensely than those surrounding it. A small label beneath it read, "SPT to APWBD Dark Lord and Harry Potter, the Prophecy," Harry realized. "My prophecy." Diana looked at it curiously. "Should we take it?" Harry hesitated. Part of him wanted to hear exactly what words had shaped his destiny so dramatically. Another part wanted nothing to do with it. "No," he decided finally. "It doesn't matter what it says exactly. We make our own fate." Artemis nodded approvingly. "The other object?" Harry turned, focusing on the second pull he felt. "This way." They continued deeper into the hall until they reached a section that appeared older than the rest, with dust-coating shelves that held few prophecy orbs. Here, partially concealed behind a support column, sat a small alcove containing a glass display case. Inside the case was a diadem, an ancient-looking tiara set with a sapphire. Ravenclaw's diadem, Harry identified it from their intelligence briefings. "It matches the description from Malfoy's notes." Diana stepped closer, studying it through the glass. "It doesn't look evil." "Neither did the diary," Harry reminded her. "But I can feel it. There's something wrong about it, the same wrongness I felt from the soul fragment in my scar." Artemis examined the case carefully. There will be protective enchantments. Do not touch it directly. She produced a specially prepared containment box from her pack, lined with materials designed to suppress dark magic and prevent detection. With careful spellwork, she disabled the case's protections and levitated the diadem into the box without physical contact. Quickly now, she said as she sealed the box. We have what we came for. But as they turned to leave, a new voice spoke from the entrance to their section of shelving. I'm afraid I cannot allow you to take that. Albus Dumbledore stood blocking their path, wand held casually at his side but clearly ready. His blue eyes, lacking their customary twinkle, fixed on Harry. Hello, Harry, he said quietly. It's been some time. Harry instinctively moved into a defensive stance, his own wand raised. Diana flanked him immediately, her swords drawn, while Artemis and the other Amazons spread out strategically. Headmaster Dumbledore, Harry acknowledged, keeping his voice steady. This doesn't concern you. A debatable point, Dumbledore replied, his gaze shifting to the containment box in Artemis's possession. Especially when you remove artifacts of dark magic from Ministry custody. Dark magic you allowed to remain here, knowing what it was? Harry challenged. Or did the great Albus Dumbledore not recognize a horcrux when he saw one? A flicker of genuine surprise crossed Dumbledore's face. You know about the horcruxes. Interesting. The Amazons have taught you more than I anticipated. They taught me everything I needed to know, Harry replied. Including how to recognize when someone is trying to use me for their own purposes. Dumbledore sighed, suddenly looking every year of his considerable age. Is that what you believe, Harry? That my only interest was in using you? Wasn't it? You left me with people who hated magic, who kept me in a cupboard. You wanted me weak, dependent, grateful for any scraps of affection. Easier to mold into your weapon against Voldemort. A harsh interpretation, Dumbledore said softly. And not entirely accurate. The blood protection would have worked just as well with any loving family connected to my mother, Harry interrupted. Hippolyta researched it thoroughly. You chose the Dursleys specifically because they would never tell me about magic, never show me love or build my confidence. The old wizard didn't immediately deny this, which Harry found more damning than any defense. We're leaving with the horcrux, Artemis stated firmly, breaking the tense silence. Stand aside, wizard. I cannot, Dumbledore replied, though his eyes never left Harry. But perhaps we can reach an accommodation. Harry, you clearly understand the threat Voldemort poses. We share a common enemy. Why not work together to defeat him? Diana snorted derisively. So you can control Harry's part in it? No thanks. This isn't a negotiation, Harry added. We've already destroyed 2 horcruxes without your help. We'll destroy this one too, then find the others. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. 2. The diary, I presume, but what was the other? The fragment in my scar, Harry said, watching comprehension dawn in the old wizard's eyes. Yes, we removed it years ago. I know you were counting on using that connection somehow in your grand plan. For the first time, Dumbledore seemed truly thrown off balance. That complicates matters significantly. Harry, there are things you don't understand about the prophecy, about your connection to Voldemort. Then enlighten us, came a new voice from behind Dumbledore. Queen Hippolyta stood there, flanked by the rest of the Amazon delegation. They had clearly abandoned the diplomatic meeting upstairs once Dumbledore's absence was noted. The old wizard glanced between the two groups, now effectively surrounded. Queen Hippolyta. I had hoped we might speak under more amenable circumstances. And yet here we are, Hippolyta replied coolly. You were about to explain what Harry doesn't understand about the prophecy. Dumbledore hesitated, clearly calculating his options. Finally, he lowered his wand slightly, not surrendering, but signaling a willingness to talk. The prophecy states that neither can live while the other survives, he said. I believed, still believe, this means Harry alone has the power to vanquish Voldemort permanently. We know this part, Hippolyta said impatiently. What don't we know? That Voldemort himself believes this prophecy absolutely, Dumbledore replied. He will never stop hunting Harry. Never stop trying to kill him. By taking Harry from the protections I established, you may have given him better training, but you've also made him more vulnerable to direct attack. We've made him stronger, Diana countered fiercely. Strong enough to face Voldemort on his own terms, not yours. Dumbledore's gaze turned to her, assessing. Princess Diana, I presume. Your mother has raised a spirited daughter. He looked back at Harry. And found you a loyal friend, it seems. More than a friend, Harry said firmly. Family. Something you never considered I might need when you left me with the Dursleys. A hint of genuine regret crossed Dumbledore's features. Perhaps I made mistakes, Harry. I am not infallible, despite what some may believe. But everything I did was with the intention of preparing you for the burden prophecy placed on your shoulders. By keeping me weak. Ignorant. By ensuring you understood the value of love, Dumbledore corrected. The power Voldemort knows not. Your mother's sacrifice protected you once. I believed, still believe, that such sacrificial love is the key to defeating him permanently. Harry felt Diana tense beside him, ready to argue further, but he placed a hand on her arm. Something in Dumbledore's words resonated, despite his anger at the old wizard's manipulations. If you truly believe in the power of love, Harry said carefully, then why isolate me from anyone who might have cared for me? Why not let me grow up knowing I was loved? Dumbledore had no immediate answer for this, and in his hesitation, Harry saw a truth the old wizard might not even recognize in himself, fear. Fear that a loved, confident Harry might not be malleable enough to sacrifice himself when the time came. We're at an impasse, Hippolyta observed, breaking the tense silence. You will not let us leave with the horcrux willingly. We will not leave without it. Perhaps not entirely an impasse, Dumbledore suggested. I propose a compromise. I will not interfere with your acquisition of this horcrux, nor with your hunt for others, on one condition: Harry returns to Hogwarts this fall, as his parents would have wished, to complete his magical education. The proposal caught everyone by surprise. Harry most of all. Absolutely not, Diana said immediately. Wait, Harry told her, then addressed Dumbledore directly. Why? Why is that your condition? Because despite our disagreements, Harry, you are still a wizard. Themyscira has given you extraordinary training in certain aspects of magic, but there is more to learn, knowledge your parents valued, traditions they participated in. And, he added with surprising candor, because I believe you should have the opportunity to make an informed choice about which world you ultimately belong to. It was clever, Harry had to admit. Dumbledore was appealing not to prophecy now, but to Harry's curiosity about his heritage, his parents, the wizarding world that might have been his home. Harry, you can't seriously be considering this, Diana protested. It would be a trap, Artemis agreed. Once at Hogwarts, you would be under his influence, away from Amazon protection. Not necessarily, Hippolyta interjected, studying Dumbledore with narrowed eyes. If certain conditions were met. Amazon guards permitted on school grounds. Freedom for Harry to leave at any time. No attempts to influence him magically or coerce his choices. Dumbledore inclined his head. Reasonable stipulations, Your Majesty. I would add that Harry should participate fully in school activities, including classes and social functions. He should experience Hogwarts as his parents did. Harry looked between the two leaders, the wizard who had shaped his early life from afar and the queen who had given him a home and family. Both powerful, both convinced of their own rightness. But only one had earned his trust. I'll consider it, he said finally. After we finish our current mission. After Voldemort is defeated. Harry, Diana began, but he squeezed her hand. It's okay, he assured her. I'm not agreeing to anything now. Just keeping options open. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. A conditional acceptance, then. Very well. I will not impede your mission today. But know this, Harry, events are accelerating. Voldemort's followers grow bolder. The attack on Malfoy Manor has forced their plans into the open. Time may be shorter than any of us realize. As if summoned by his words, a silver spectral animal, a lynx, bounded into the Hall of Prophecy. It spoke with Kingsley Shacklebolt's voice, Death Eaters attacking the Ministry. All Aurors respond. Civilians evacuate immediately. The message dissolved, leaving a moment of stunned silence before distant explosions confirmed its warning. It seems, Dumbledore said grimly, that our discussion must be postponed. Hippolyta immediately took command. Artemis, secure the horcrux. Philippus, prepare our exit route. Diana, Harry, stay close. More explosions sounded, closer this time. The floor beneath them trembled slightly. The attack is not coincidental, Dumbledore observed. Voldemort must have learned of the Amazon delegation, and suspected your true purpose here. Then we fight our way out, Hippolyta stated matter-of-factly. Dumbledore, will you oppose us or assist us? The old wizard considered for only a moment before raising his wand. Against Death Eaters? We fight together, of course. The enemy of my enemy, as they say. Harry wasn't entirely sure he trusted this alliance, but there was no time to debate. The sounds of battle were growing closer. Somewhere above, people were shouting and running. This way, Dumbledore indicated, leading them toward a different exit than they had entered. A more direct route to the atrium. They moved swiftly through the Department of Mysteries, passing strange rooms and artifacts that Harry barely had time to notice. As they neared what appeared to be the main entrance to the department, they encountered their first resistance, 3 black-robed figures with silver masks. The Death Eaters reacted with surprise at the sight of Dumbledore alongside the Amazons, but recovered quickly. Green killing curses erupted from their wands, forcing the group to scatter for cover. Diana, never one for caution, charged directly at the nearest Death Eater. Her enchanted swords deflected his curses as she closed the distance with supernatural speed. Before he could apparate away, she had disarmed him with a precise strike that severed his wand hand. Hippolyta and Dumbledore, despite their philosophical differences, worked in seamless tandem against the second Death Eater. The Queen's spear disrupted his shield charm while Dumbledore's silent spell bound him in conjured ropes that glowed with magical energy. Harry faced the third alongside Artemis. He demonstrated his unique fighting style, blending Amazon training with wizarding spells. Expelliarmus, he called, not to disarm the Death Eater directly, the man's shield was too strong, but to create a momentary distraction. In that split second, Harry switched to wandless magic in the Amazon style, stomping his foot to send a shockwave through the floor that broke the Death Eater's stance. Artemis capitalized immediately, her thrown knife finding the gap between shield and floor to pin the man's robes to the ground. Stupefy. Harry finished, his stunning spell now able to penetrate the destabilized shield. The skirmish lasted less than 30 seconds, but Harry knew it was only the beginning. As they continued toward the atrium, the sounds of larger battles echoed through the Ministry. When they finally reached the atrium level, the scene was chaos. Ministry employees fled in all directions while Aurors dueled with masked Death Eaters. Statues had been toppled, fires burned in several locations, and magical attacks crisscrossed the open space. "They're targeting the Floo connections," Philippus observed, pointing to a group of Death Eaters systematically destroying the fireplaces that served as exits. "And the apparition points," Dumbledore added grimly. "They're trying to trap everyone inside." Harry scanned the battlefield, instinctively categorizing threats and possible escape routes as his Amazon training had taught him. Then he spotted something that made his blood run cold, the same swirling black smoke he'd seen at Malfoy Manor, now coalescing near the center of the atrium. "Voldemort," he warned, pointing. All eyes turned to the forming wraith. Unlike at the Manor, where he had appeared relatively weak, here Voldemort's spectral form seemed stronger, more defined, feeding perhaps on the chaos and fear around him. He's still not fully corporeal, Dumbledore observed. But stronger than he should be. The ritual at Malfoy Manor must have partially succeeded before you interrupted it. The wraith-like Voldemort surveyed the battle with glowing red eyes. When his gaze fell on their group, specifically on Harry, the temperature in the atrium seemed to drop several degrees. Potter, the high, cold voice carried easily despite the noise of battle. And his Amazon protectors. How convenient. Death Eaters began to disengage from their individual battles, moving to surround Voldemort in a protective formation. The Aurors, sensing the shift, retreated to regroup around Kingsley Shacklebolt near the main entrance. The Horcrux, Harry said quietly to Artemis. We need to get it out of here. The Amazon warrior nodded, passing the containment box to one of her sisters. Take this to the extraction point. We will cover your retreat. As the designated Amazon slipped away toward a side corridor, Voldemort's wraith form seemed to expand with rage. I know what you seek, he hissed. I know what you've taken. Return it, or watch everyone in this building die. Hippolyta stepped forward, her royal bearing undimmed by the chaos around her. You threaten us, Shadow. You who cannot even maintain physical form. The Amazons faced gods in their prime. We do not fear the remnants of a broken wizard. The direct challenge enraged Voldemort further. His wraith form swirled violently as he screamed, kill them all. But Potter is mine. The Death Eaters attacked en masse. Spells of all colors, but predominantly the sickly green of the killing curse, streaked toward the Amazon formation. What followed was unlike any battle in recent wizarding history. The Amazons, with their unique blend of physical combat and ancient magic, engaged the Death Eaters directly while Dumbledore and the regrouping Aurors provided ranged support. Diana and Harry fought side by side, as they had trained to do for years. Her swords deflected curses that would have been lethal to others, while his combination of wizarding spells and Amazon techniques kept their attackers off balance. Behind you. Diana called as a Death Eater apparat directly behind Harry. He dropped instantly to one knee, allowing Diana's thrown dagger to pass over his head and strike the Death Eater in the shoulder. As the man staggered, Harry swept his leg, toppling him, then followed with a stunning spell at point-blank range. Nearby, Hippolyta demonstrated why she had ruled Themyscira for millennia. Her spear moved faster than the eye could follow, deflecting killing curses back at their casters while she advanced steadily toward Voldemort himself. Dumbledore, for his part, fought with the skill and power that had made him legendary. His wand wove complex patterns as he simultaneously shielded allies, attacked enemies, and repaired critical damage to the Ministry's structure to prevent the building from collapsing around them. But for all their combined strength, the situation remained precarious. More Death Eaters continued to arrive via hidden entrances, and Voldemort, though still incorporeal, directed the battle with tactical precision that belied his wraith-like state. We need to retreat. Philippus called to Hippolyta. The Horcrux is secured. Our mission is accomplished. Hippolyta nodded, signaling the phased withdrawal they had practiced. Amazons began to disengage in coordinated groups, covering each other as they moved toward their predetermined exit route. Harry and Diana prepared to fall back with the second group when Voldemort suddenly surged forward, his wraith form moving with impossible speed directly toward them. You will not escape me again, Potter, he shrieked. Harry raised his wand, but before he could cast, Diana stepped in front of him, her swords crossed in a defensive position. Get through me first, she challenged the wraith. Voldemort's laugh was high and cold. Foolish child. You cannot harm what has no physical form. His smoky essence engulfed Diana before anyone could react. She gasped, her swords dropping to her sides as the wraith attempted to possess her body. Diana. Harry screamed, reaching for her. But Diana was not ordinary prey. Her divine heritage, the blood of Zeus flowing through her veins, reacted violently to the attempted possession. Golden light erupted from her skin, burning away Voldemort's essence wherever it touched her. The Dark Lord shrieked in genuine pain, withdrawing his wraith form. "What is this magic?" he demanded, circling them warily now. Diana, pale but standing firm, retrieved her swords. "Not magic," she spat. "Divinity. Something you wouldn't understand." Harry moved to her side immediately. "Are you okay?" "Fine," she assured him, though she looked shaken. "He's cold inside. Broken." Voldemort's attention fixed on them with renewed intensity. "The girl is not human," he hissed, addressing his Death Eaters but loud enough for all to hear. "The Amazons harbor a half-breed abomination among them." "Rich coming from you," Harry retorted. "At least she has a body." The taunt struck home. Voldemort's wraith form pulsed with fury. "You think yourself clever, Potter? You think your Amazon training makes you my equal? You are nothing. A child playing at war." As he spoke, Harry felt a strange pressure building around them, not directed at his mind this time, but at something deeper. The prophecy, he realized. Voldemort was trying to invoke the magical binding of the prophecy itself. "I am the Dark Lord prophesied to face you," Voldemort continued, his voice taking on a resonant quality that seemed to echo inside Harry's very bones. "Neither can live while the other survives. Feel it, Potter. Feel the prophecy that binds us. You cannot escape your destiny." The pressure intensified. Harry felt a compulsion trying to take hold, a magical urge to step forward, to face Voldemort alone as the prophecy had decreed. His scar, though long cleansed of the horcrux, began to prickle uncomfortably. "Harry?" Diana's concerned voice seemed distant suddenly. He shook his head, trying to clear it. This was old magic, prophecy magic, attempting to enforce the fate that had been spoken years before his birth. For a moment, he felt overwhelmed by it, the weight of destiny pressing down on him like a physical force. Then he felt Diana's hand gripping his, warm and real and present. "Stay with me," she said firmly. "Don't let him in." Her touch anchored him. 6 years of Amazon training in mental discipline reasserted itself. This was just another form of external control, no different from the mind-reading Menelip had taught them to resist. Harry straightened, meeting Voldemort's glowing red eyes directly. "Nice try," he said, his voice steady now. "But I don't believe in your prophecy. I make my own fate." "Impossible," Voldemort hissed. "The prophecy binds us both." "Only if we let it," Harry countered. "Only if we give it power." He raised his wand, but not to attack. Instead, he pointed it toward the distant Hall of Prophecy, far below where they stood. "Like this, Accio Prophecy Orb." It was a spell that shouldn't have worked at such distance, through so many barriers. But Harry poured every ounce of his magical strength into it, visualizing the specific orb he had seen earlier. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint whistling sound grew louder until a small glass sphere came hurtling into the atrium, zooming directly to Harry's outstretched hand. The fighting around them paused as all eyes turned to the prophecy orb now glowing brightly in Harry's grip. "No." Voldemort's wraith surged forward. "You cannot." But Harry was already channeling magic through his hand, not to listen to the prophecy, but to overload it from within. The orb began to vibrate, glowing brighter and brighter as he poured raw magical energy into it. "I reject your destiny." Harry ground out each word through clenched teeth as the orb reached its breaking point. With a sound like a thunderclap, the prophecy orb exploded in a shower of glass and swirling mist. For an instant, a spectral figure appeared in the mist, a woman with enormous glasses and a shawl, but before she could speak the prophecy's words, the magical energy Harry had poured into the orb dissipated the apparition completely. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The pressure Harry had felt, the magical compulsion of the prophecy, vanished. Voldemort's wraith form actually recoiled, as if physically struck. "What have you done?" the Dark Lord shrieked. Harry stood tall, Diana at his side, feeling lighter than he had in years. "I broke your prophecy. I rejected the destiny you and Dumbledore both tried to force on me. Whatever happens now, it's by my choice, not because some seer said it must be so." For perhaps the first time in his existence, Lord Voldemort seemed genuinely uncertain. His wraith form wavered, the red eyes dimming slightly as he processed this unprecedented development. The moment was broken by a shout from across the atrium: "The anti-apparition wards are down. Ministry forces, evacuate civilians." Chaos resumed as Aurors began disapparating with injured personnel. Death Eaters, sensing the tide turning, also began to retreat rather than be captured. "Harry! Diana!" Hippolyta called from near their extraction point. "Now!" They turned to go, but Voldemort's wraith made one final, desperate lunge toward Harry. "This changes nothing, Potter. I will return to full power. I will find you." Harry faced the wraith one last time. "I'm counting on it," he said with grim determination. "Because next time, we finish this, on my terms, not yours." With that, he grabbed Diana's hand, and together they raced to join Hippolyta and the remaining Amazons. As Philippus activated their emergency port key, Harry caught one final glimpse of the battlefield, Dumbledore watching them with an unreadable expression, Voldemort's wraith dissipating into the air, and the ruins of the prophecy orb scattered across the atrium floor. Then the port key activated, and the Ministry of Magic disappeared in a swirl of magical transportation. They rematerialized at their fallback position, an ancient stone circle in the Scottish Highlands, far from any wizard settlement. The Amazons moved with practiced efficiency, establishing a defensive perimeter while checking for injuries. "The horcrux?" Hippolyta asked immediately. "Secured," Artemis confirmed. "Epione has already taken it to our ships with the first evacuation group." Harry sat heavily on a fallen stone, the adrenaline of battle finally wearing off. Diana dropped down beside him, looking equally drained. "You destroyed the prophecy," she said, still sounding somewhat odd. "I didn't know that was possible." "Neither did I," Harry admitted. "I just couldn't let him use it against me anymore. Couldn't let him or Dumbledore define who I am by those words." "It was well done," Hippolyta said, approaching them. "Though the magical backlash could have been dangerous." Harry nodded, acknowledging the risk he'd taken. "I know. But it felt right. I've spent my whole life under the shadow of that prophecy. I needed to break free of it. And you have." Hippolyta placed a hand on his shoulder. "Prophecies hold power only when we accept them as inevitable. By rejecting it so completely, you have weakened Voldemort in ways he does not yet understand. But he's still out there," Harry pointed out. "And we still have more horcruxes to find." "Yes," the Queen agreed. "But today, we struck significant blows. We secured another horcrux. We demonstrated Amazon strength to both Dumbledore and Voldemort. And you, Harry, have taken a crucial step toward defining your own destiny." Diana nudged his shoulder. "Plus, you looked really cool doing it. The way you summoned that orb from so far away. I've never seen magic like that." Despite his exhaustion, Harry smiled at her enthusiasm. "Couldn't have done it without you. When Voldemort tried to possess you." "Divine heritage has its uses," Diana shrugged, though her casual tone couldn't quite hide how shaken she'd been by the experience. Hippolyta studied them both with affection and pride. "Rest now. We move to the coast at nightfall. The ships await us." As the Queen moved away to oversee their withdrawal, Harry leaned back against the stone, looking up at the British sky, so different from Themyscira's, grayer and heavier somehow. "What happens now?" Diana asked quietly. "After we destroy this horcrux, I mean." "We find the others," Harry replied. "According to Malfoy's notes, there should be at least 2 more, something connected to Hufflepuff and something belonging to Slytherin. And then, she pressed. What about Dumbledore's offer? Hogwarts? Harry had been turning that question over in his mind since they left the Ministry. I don't know yet, he admitted. Part of me wants to see it, to know what my parents experienced, to learn about that part of my heritage. But Themyscira is home now. He looked at her directly. You, Hippolyta, the Amazons, you're my family. I'm not giving that up. Diana seemed satisfied with this answer. Good. Because I'd have to follow you to Hogwarts if you went, and I don't think I'd look good in one of those pointy hats. Harry laughed, the sound echoing off the ancient stones around them. I don't know. You in Hogwarts robes? That might be worth seeing just for the look on everyone's faces when you start swinging swords in the Great Hall. As their laughter faded, Harry's expression turned more thoughtful. Whatever I decide about Hogwarts, one thing is clear, Voldemort needs to be dealt with first. Permanently. And he will be, Diana said with absolute confidence. We'll find the remaining horcruxes. We'll destroy them all. And then you'll face him, not because a prophecy says you must, but because you choose to. Harry nodded, drawing strength from her certainty. On my terms, he repeated softly. Not his. Not Dumbledore's. Mine. As twilight approached and the Amazons prepared to move out, Harry took one last look at the British landscape stretching out below their hilltop position. Somewhere out there, Voldemort was regrouping, planning his next move. Somewhere too, Dumbledore was undoubtedly reassessing his understanding of Harry Potter, the boy who was supposed to fulfill a prophecy but had instead shattered it. Neither wizard had seen the last of him. But when they met again, it would not be as they expected. Not as a pawn in their game of prophecy and power, but as a warrior who had forged his own path. A path that began 6 years ago with an accidental apparition to an island of warrior women, and now led forward into a future where destiny was not decreed, but chosen. Ready? Diana asked, offering her hand as the Amazon signaled it was time to depart. Harry took it, rising to his feet with newfound determination. Ready. Together, they joined the Amazon formation as it moved out, heading back toward the sea, toward their ships, toward Themyscira. Toward home. Not fleeing, but returning with purpose. The horcrux hunt would continue. Voldemort would be confronted. Decisions about Hogwarts and the wizarding world would be made. But whatever came next, Harry Potter would face it not as the boy who lived, defined by prophecy and manipulated by others, but as himself, shaped by love, trained by Amazons, and free to forge his own destiny. And that, he knew with absolute certainty, made all the difference. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.